everybody. Welcome to the show. It's great to see everybody in the chat. We got already a lively crowd here, so it's awesome to see so many people lining up around the block. They can't wait to see the impeccable Camel Elitist, Camel Moon. We're going to be talking about Hail Salad today, so look forward to that. Definitely going to be an interesting show. We got him coming on a little bit later. Camel's going to hang. And yeah, we'll see how long he hangs for, but we will string him up, definitely. Let's jump into the chat and see who's here first. Joining us early on, we've got Jay $sign reminding us that no one is going to watch this. And yet we're all here. Yeah, all this echoing that sentiment. Thank you. We are all here out of duty, out of a sense of obligation. I mean, what inspires us to do this? Maybe we need some wise words to help us find the way. Here's John Fetterman. We can't be held to and like Russia. Words of wisdom indeed. Yes, I'm sure words such as those inspired the great Camel Moon as he was writing Hail Salad. We've also got Dark Gift Comics. What's up, peeps? Great to see you. Linkovich, hey, thanks for being here. Better be good. I left the wolf for this. Oh, tradition upholds. Malin is streaming over us. How dare he? Well, we'll show him. We'll get all 10 of his viewers. He can have the other 500 or 600. That'll teach him a lesson. He'll never do it again. Can Camel hang? We're going to find out how much Camel does hang. How hung he is? No, wait. We also got Jack Stafford. Ahoy, me mateys. Ahoy, Jack. Thanks for being here. Yeah, we got a panel together. Everybody's ready. Everybody's got the book and a little discussion in the back. People are interested and definitely have a lot of thoughts to share on it. So Camel's first outing in CG is definitely one that warrants a little bit of back and forth. We'll see exactly how he progresses as a creator, but he's been around for quite a bit and contributed quite a few areas. He's one of the early meme masters, and this is one of his early references for a lot of things that he did for CG. Definitely something worth checking out if you're into a little bit of the CG lore. Well, Hung and Dung says, I've got my copy a couple of weeks ago, but haven't read it yet because I've been so busy and so tired. The book and extras came very well packaged. Well, that's really good to hear. Speaking of well packaged, let's bring on the panel. So each of these fine gentlemen are stoked and ready to go, and they've come hung. I guess hanging is going to be the theme for tonight. Well hung loves packages, exactly. So let's bring on our first hung package. We've got Sinatra.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. All righty, I'm ready.
Good. Thanks for being here.
I'm hung, and I'm full of dung, like well hung and dung.
Well, as long as your dung isn't packed, I think that's fine.
Okay.
All right.
Good point.
Yeah. We got Dark Gift Comics.
Yeah. How you doing? Hung packages. That's the theme of the night, huh?
Yeah. They were going with that. So.
All right. I'm down.
All right.
I got my hung all packaged.
And we've got also Aldous on the Farm. Welcome.
Thank you, well read. I was not aware that this would be such a shaft fest.
Yeah,
I didn't know we were gonna have a theme tonight. I would have came dressed more appropriately.
That's kind of what I'm thinking as well, man.
Yeah.
I feel like at least should we have a banana on the desk or something.
Well, I mean, we definitely have some robes in the closet. You guys can share. It's fine.
That's like wearing the hotel robe, man. You don't do that.
Well, this is the CG slums, so we kind of just make do. We make do. Lord Ravner here, he says, Camel Moon is arguably in the top 300 of CG creators. I don't know. Is that giving him too much credit?
Well, that's better than me. I'm probably only in the top 500, so.
I mean, that'd be amazing if we had that many creators, though, in CG. Do you think we're pushing anywhere near that number?
500. Well, I mean, depends on what you mean by creators. Are you talking about someone who actually puts a book, or somebody who does work? Because you have inkers, you have colorists, you know that might not have their own campaign. So
if we crossed all of CG, Could we count up 300 just in everybody contributing creatively to it?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. I mean, that's not too shabby. So I'm sure any of the big two would love to have that much staff, doing editorial and all the other work that goes into promoting books. So 3D is not that bad in terms of the creative staff that we have here.
I mean, just look at the 656 guys. Where there's like 7 of them in one camp.
I
so,
swear, every stream I go to, they like gain another one too. It's like,
it's true. It's like a cult. They're just recruiting over there.
It's like he just arrived, hopped out of the back of a truck. So there you go. That's how we're recruiting.
there's a Home Depot parking lot joke hanging around somewhere.
Exactly. Speaking of Home Depot parking lots, we've got Puma Fist. He hangs out in a lot of parking lots.
Good segue.
Excellent. Well done.
Yeah. Behave yourself, Puma Fist. Don't do anything that gets the channel in trouble while you're in chat. So no M-bombs and no F-bombs. Everything else.
Let's do that. He doesn't. I don't think ever. Yeah, he doesn't do that. I don't think.
Yeah, everything else is copacetic. So we've also got James Hayes. It's always nice to see him show up in chat. He's got a lot of great questions when he's here. He says, hello, Well Read, Dark Gift, Finatra, Aldous, and all of you fine folks frequenting the chat. I hope that you're having a great night. We are. Thank you
as well, James.
Cheers, James says.
We have another new person here. Son of Liberty Radio. I might be in the wrong chat with all this talk of Camel Moon's package.
Or you might be in the right place.
Yeah, exactly. Well Hung knows what's up. Cucumber, eggplant, banana. There we go.
Yeah.
It's a trifecta of packages.
I was just going to say the same thing. I shit you not.
Not quite a Yahtzee, though.
You beat me to it.
Not quite. Well, so tonight we're talking about the packages in that comprise hail salad. Fortunately, it's not a toss salad. We're just one that we hail. But it's Camel Moon's first outing as a CG comic creator. He made a bunch of meme videos where he basically clipped the CG live streams, created characters out of the people that were appearing on them, and then basically, made cartoons, slicing up whatever they said into comedic, segments.
Well, if you go back to the beginning, he was spoofing Space Ghosts coast to coast, and then got a cease and desist. If you remember,
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if we EFAP'd one of those, do you think we would get a cease and desist?
No, he just got a cease and desist on making them, I think.
I see. Yeah, so we can check one of those out a little bit later. I've got one of the older ones queued up, as well as a few episodes of Hail Salad. So just for reference, those are available. This book pulled down 778 backers and 53K, which is not too shabby for a first-time CG creator.
It's great.
Yeah. Puts him up there in the top tier, definitely. Quite a lot of perks came with it. $20 for the newsstand edition, and you had stickers and standees as your tchotchkes that would come with the comic. And the comic itself doesn't look too shabby. Multiple covers, so quite a good package from Hail Salad.
A hung package, if you will.
I'm trying to think of a pun how to mix in tossed salad and package. There's got to be something there.
You'll get there.
I'll get there. I'm mulling over it. Zach's got quite a package here. Speaking of which, but yeah. Anyway, so let's get our minds out of the gutter and into Camel Salad. So set it up for me a little bit. We all know that this is based on a parody of the CG creators. But what exactly does he do with that material for this comic book? Does he try to establish them as unique characters in this parody world that he created? Or does he continue with the references inside baseball material?
Well, that's kind of where in the back of my, I said I was torn, because he does try to establish them as these unique characters, which going into it, in my mind, I'm hearing the I'm seeing the anime play in my head, you know, and these characters didn't read like those guys at first, and it threw me for a loop. But he starts building these character, like the character development starts to kick in, and then I start getting into it, and then he'll hit a point where he writes something where it is reminiscent of the cartoons that he made, and then it pulls me back that way. So I kept going back and forth, like when I would finally get into the character development, it would reference something in the cartoon or something similar to the cartoon. And then I'd be like, oh, well, now I got to start this whole character development thing over again. But that was my own, I think, hang up. I don't think that's anything detrimental to Camel. But yeah, he does create unique characters out of them.
So is it a little too serious for satire?
No.
What was your take, Finatra?
Yeah, it was a prequel to all the cartoons he was making. For me, he was setting foundations for each character in a unique way, and coming up with origins of why this character looks like this or like that. Even like as an example, John Malin as the hologram Cerebus has that story in there, and I think it was pretty good actually. I thought it was pretty solid how he explained everything and how he worked it all in. I imagine he didn't all have it down at once, but he was kind of working and telling the story to himself. Because you got to imagine, when he was making those cartoons, he was already coming up with origins in his head, whether he knew he was going to make that comic book or not. You know.
So you think a lot of this was premeditated then?
I think a little bit of this, a little bit of that, probably some stuff that he grew up with, mixing, you know, like just an amalgam of all type of ideas and childhood memory, you know, like just member berries and stuff like that, you know, mashing it all together. It's pretty fun.
What's your take on all this? Did this work, his attempt to make his parody characters into something serious that he could build storylines from?
I think it really, really works in one way and kind of doesn't in another. It really, really works as a fun humor book. It doesn't work in that you can't pick this up with no reference to the material that's coming from it and not get a lot of the context.
Right.
But as if you know any semblance of the context, then yes, the story, everything works about it, but it's not a blind pickup. You kind of have to have a little bit of the backstory and a little bit of the foundation in order to make sense of some of the stuff that's in there.
Sure.
Well, so what is the foundation that you felt was being introduced in these stories to make sense of everything?
Well, when I say foundation, I mean like you have to know at least a little bit of the story of early CG and know who Zach is, know who Ethan are, understand why Doug is portrayed the way Doug is. If you weren't around for those or haven't heard the stories or are aware of it, you're going to read this and kind of miss a lot of the subtext that's going on, a lot of the humor. Really, the humor is built upon that. Hey, if you're in on the joke, it's here you go. If you miss that, it's still a good story. It was fun. I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more, but I think you needed that foundation of at least the baseline in order to really get everything you possibly could out of this.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that definitely. That when I did Sunday Follies for Mandy, I mean, it's basically all just CG lore reference. Like if you had no clue and picked that up and read it, like you'd be like, "What the hell? Why is this even supposed to be funny?" Like so.
Right.
Yeah, it was the same. It was the same thing here. Like, yeah, if you don't know CG lore, if you don't know who Camel Moon is or what these, where this comic book even comes from, like the cartoons that the animations that he made, you'd be like, what the fuck is this shit?
At the same time, he does kind of have a land, a fairy tale land that he made with an actual purpose of why those circumstances were bringing them together and having to fight this force, and a lot of analogous kind of plots and situations. A lot of comparisons to what we're going on through nowadays through the culture war. It's kind of analogous towards it. I guess that's the word, right?
I mean, is this the first time you've ever read a story where satire characters started to become their own fully formed, three-dimensional characters? I don't think I can remember a single reference where there was material like treated this way.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
because Mad Magazine, for example, like it would always reference back. You would need to have some inside baseball to be able to read that and understand exactly, what it's describing and get the jokes. But I don't remember ever plot lines developing from that. So this is
I think
probably something unique that he's doing.
Yeah, I think the closest you might get is like Trudeau's Doonesbury, where you had the floating Spartan helmet that was shedding feathers, that was a light allegorical reference to Bush, or the Hunter S. Thompson clone that kind of developed into his own ethereal character as the strip went on.
Yeah.
But as far as a comic goes, I can't think of any. There's a couple of comic strips like that, or even Calvin and Hobbes, where you had certain allegorical or metaphorical references to larger concepts that were kind of grown and emerged as almost became like a tulpa within the segment of the world ethos that they were working in. But you don't get. I can't think of anything like this in a comic. No.
Yeah, no.
Well, so what does he actually do with the characters? Does he forego? You said there is still some needed reference to the original basis where he built these parodies from, but does he forego a lot of that when he starts to establish them as their own characters? Do you feel that they're actually unique?
Yeah, I mean, he does a really good job. I mean, overall, the story is concise. It's constructed well. The dialogue's constructed well. Once we get into kind of the details, the finer points of it, I mean, there's a few criticisms I got of just minor things, but overall, it's a good story. It's just it's really just the jokes. If you want the jokes to land, if you want to catch the puns. You referenced Mad Magazine. When you go back and you look at the early Mads and they're doing a film lift and they're doing a mock of it, it really helps if you would have seen the film to catch the joke. And it's kind of the same thing here, man. Like, it's funny. It's a cartoon reference of some stuff that happened, and it's metaphor, it's pun, and it's allegory, and there's a level of brilliance to some of it, and there's a couple of other moments where you eye roll and go, "Oh man!" But each side of that you get a good laugh out of, and I think that's balanced really well in the context of the book.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if this lends itself to the medium of satire or the fact that like he started with these these I don't know how to describe those cartoons that he made, but like very like
niche,
eccentric cartoons. But the story itself is very it's a simple story. Like he doesn't try to like go too crazy. He gives you like a nice foundation, like this is the world, this is what it's called, these are the characters, this is and like Aldous said, like it's very, you can follow along with it. The dialogue is good. Sometimes it gets a little campy.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I'm saying is that a lot of those campy moments are. It's almost like he kind of veers a little into campy to get the joke across that he's trying to kind of go for. And if you're not familiar with that particular associated punchline, then it's a little bit of a miss.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, overall, the story, he establishes his world, he establishes his characters, he establishes what the challenge is, he establishes the action beats, and the action beats are actually pretty well paced.
Yep.
For a book like this, it's a quick, I'm not going to say a quick read, but it's one of those where you don't stop reading halfway through because you're bored. It pulls you through the book.
Also, Dark Gift,
it's properly paced. I would say that it's pretty good. There's probably a couple of spots that I missed in the story, but we'll get into that, I guess.
Yeah. So Dark Gift, expose this package for us a little bit and walk us through where does the story open up and what exactly happens as the plot unfolds.
Well, it opens up with basically an introduction to the world. You find out that like where these characters live is called Trollala. And it tells you like it's like basically a condensed cartoon version of like a world map, and so it shows you. And there's a lot of like heavy reference to like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So you have like the castle. What was it called? Castle.
At the back of it, the ad. That was funny as hell, dude.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Castle
yes.
Troll Skull.
Yep.
Troll Skull, yeah, Castle Troll Skull, and like, you know, then you've got like the Pixie Forest over here, and it goes through that, and it tells you this like brief history of how there was the Troll Jan horse war, and no, I know Gray Skull Puma Fist. I'm talking about the book.
I did enjoy that very much. How he started the story off with the inciting incident, or you know what, establishing the story. But then he went into the origin really, and then came out of the origin really seamlessly and took to the modern day, and then got right back to the story. I really freaking enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was that caught me
No,
off. That was pretty damn smooth.
No,
Yeah,
I'm right there with you, man. Act 1 of this is really good.
It is. Hell yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I gotta say, like when I first saw that it was only like what's like 20 pages, 22 pages, something like that, I was like, well, is it how many pages is it?
I think it's a little more than 22.
Am I thinking because I got the digital version, so maybe it's like 40 pages?
I don't think it's that many.
I don't know.
I'll tell you right now.
It's probably close to 40. Yeah. Because, there's a couple where it's the 2 pages together, and then there's a few where it's a single page. So,
Right,
It's 36 page. Well, because you got
30,
the 36,
yeah.
it's like 34, 36 pages.
But I was like, oh, how is it like, you know, how's this going to play out in such a small, you know, smaller size book, you know? Not that I have anything against it. Like I like 32, 36 page
Was
books.
seamless too much of a strong word? Jade, I was like, seamless. What do you mean? It's only
No,
it worked pretty well because I didn't even notice. I'm like, oh shit, that was just the
Yeah.
origin, and now we're getting back. Oh, it worked out very
but I think
well.
the size of the book worked for him, like to make everything so seamless. Like, you know what I mean? Like he didn't have to worry about making it.
Just an easy word to use.
Yeah,
you could-
48. You know, he didn't have to make it 48 pages or 64.
Nah.
Like if it was 48 pages or 64 pages, I don't think he would have been able to fill it in.
I think he chopped that shit down so much that he still needed a couple pages, so he used the inside of the cover as a page.
No, you know, I got to compliment him on that though. You know, a lot of books, especially in the CG indie space, when you open them up, the inside cover is either blank or it's just got credits in it.
Mhm.
CAMEL used that space, man, and that map with like the intro is just as cool, if not cooler, than a lot of the pages in the book because he's got all the details with all the locations.
Yep.
And there's just tons of little tiny things that are placed in there that, again, man, it's the ongoing theme of this whole book. There's just little things that if you were around for that one show when that thing was said, you catch the joke. And I think there's no like one big belly laugh throughout the whole thing where your eyes are watering because you're laughing so hard, but there's a lot of little moments where you chuckle and go, "Oh, that's good." And
It keeps you going. It feeds you. Bird feeds you a little bit of jokes here and there, and keeps you going. But it's got a lot to do with story and action, so it's kind of a balancing act, you know. It's not just all jokes and.
Jay Dollar wants to hear some criticism. One criticism I'll give is like some of the font that was used was a little hard on the eye. You know,
The what?
some of the font used, like the.
Well, I thought the wording or the letters were fine, the bubbles and all that stuff.
Yeah, that was fine. Like I'm talking like the font here, like you see in like the banners and stuff like that, because it's supposed to be like, you know, old timey and stuff.
Like
yeah,
they're like bellowing.
yeah, a little bit of that might just because of you got the digital. Because I'm looking at the physical, and it's not a problem at all.
That's probably it. It doesn't
Yeah.
translate well digitally. Yeah, you
Right.
gotta really zoom in. You know what I mean, to look at it.
My one criticism is both it's a criticism and it's one of the things that I'm sure it was intentional, but the colors are so just garish at times.
Yes, that was my next criticism too. Yeah,
And I get it. I mean, it's supposed to be that style, but like there's a couple of pages where it's just like it's almost overwhelming.
Mhm.
And then you'll have like one panel where it's just a static color background. And that panel, because it's just a static monochrome background, ends up standing out on the page because everything else is so busy that one kind of starts dominating it. There's one with, in particular with Fraga's character,
Mhm.
that it's just a red background. And it's like the rest of the page has stuff going on. And then it's just Fraga with red. And I'm sure stylistically, there
I'm
were
looking at it
reasons for
right
that.
now.
Yeah, but man, and there's a couple other moments like that throughout the book where that was just like oh man, like it Bummer. But overall, I mean, the garish colors aside, I'm sure, like I said, as you're reading the book, you start to understand why, and it kind of fits with everything else. But yeah, it was there, and it's a minor for me.
What does he accomplish in the first act that stood out to all of you? Because all of you pointed out how effectively that was executed.
He established the land, the people, and the circumstance and the situation real quick, and then gave you the backstory and actually gave people kind of like reasons why they were, as breaking the fourth wall, like letting you know why they look the way they do, why he designed them that way, and he's got the, it's all just set right there in the beginning of the in the first half of the story. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it basically sets up, like, explains the conflict and all the players in it and how they got to the point that we're at in the story now. Like, really, like, in a matter of a few pages.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's kind of, and to make it, like, not so, like, I didn't notice at all. Like, I had to be like, oh, shit, that was the origin. I'm like, oh, this is cool. It felt like the pacing was right. It felt good when I was reading it. So, I mean, that's great, I'm not that harsh of a critic on comics, especially, cartoony parodies like this. This is my
Well,
thing,
I will say the one thing that's been bothering me since I read it, and maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but it took me a while to figure out, like, the King Smug. It finally kicked in, like, halfway through, like, who it was supposed to be. But I still don't know who Queen Z is.
Me either.
Like, who is Queen Z based on?
I think he has, because it was supposed to be Renfamous or one of those chicks. And
I thought Renfamous at first too, but then I was like, well, isn't that supposed to be the land whale? Like, I don't know. Like,
there was something that I think Aldous mentioned where how they were portrayed in the cartoon was liberties were taken to make them different, or make them to give them their own voice, or kind of give them a working kind of voice in the story. And so they did kind of take on a different persona as they did in the show. But that's kind of set. That's a good setup, though. I'm sorry I cut you off, though. My bad.
That's all right. No, yeah, like, so that was one thing that, like, to this day, like, I still don't know who Queen Z is supposed to be. I finally figure out that King Smug was, Doug.
Well, criticism is when I did get through it, because I was kind of zipping through it. I did not know how he got transformed, but we'll get to that part.
Yeah. And I agree with James. There are some panel placements that throw me off a little bit too. Like, I had to, like, go, oh wait, I'm going to the wrong panel right now. So, and I'd have to go back real quick. So yeah.
See, I assumed it was some, like, play on Doug's masculinity, like it was like the Z chromosome type thing, where you get the ZW matchup. That's kind of what I was thinking. Is like,
oh wow, you really went deep with that one.
I couldn't figure out the reference. I couldn't figure out the reference of Z, and so then I'm like, okay,
Z. Maybe
yeah, it's the Queen Z. Like, what's Z? And I'm like, is it like is he talking like it's the masculinity aspect of Doug because it's aggressive, whereas Doug's like super passive aggressive, like where they separated out, and that's like they're both I thought kind of that's where it was going, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't know, like that'd be my best shot in the dark, and that's a pretty Hail Mary. Honestly, I don't think it matters in the end. I really would. There was nothing about the Queen Z character where I was like. And you know what? And this goes back to what I was saying. I might be totally oblivious to a bunch of jokes that were in there because I'm missing a connection. But I just kind of was like, oh, okay, whatever. And I jumped to the part, and then I jumped further in, and then the next part where I understood something, I went, that's pretty good.
Camel Moon just blew my mind.
Yeah, I forgot about her. Yeah, I forgot about
Zoe
that chick.
Quinn. That's right. He says he calls her cuz, but she calls him cuz, and he's like, I'm not your cousin. Oh, that's right. Because there was that rumor that Zoe Quinn was seen. I totally forgot
they're
about
saying that was Ethan's cousin.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, there was a rumor back in the day. Oh, dude, good hidden Easter egg there, man. Totally blew my mind just now. Holy shit. I feel better now that I know who it is, though.
I'm glad I was overthinking it.
Me too, kind of.
So a gripping first act, enjoying a nice tight initial penetration. How does he balance, though, having so many characters throughout the rest of the story? Does he maintain that same composure throughout the second and third acts? Is there anywhere that this book
he does.
Maybe goes
and
askew?
I think the character that he handles it the best with is Wenger. Wenger's character development is from start to finish is probably the most fleshed out and accurate of any of the tropes that he's using. From his first words that I'm green to his next comment, which is hi. It's the depth is just astounding on how it's like the character's right there.
I'm green. That was a good line, though. I was like, what the hell is that? I'm like, oh, it's Wenger. Yeah. I'm green.
So Wenger was the most fleshed out throughout the entire.
I mean, obviously, I was in jest, but no, I mean, he did a good job of balancing the action. Every action sequence is a good transposition between one character to another. But again, it's a fast-paced story, and he doesn't dwell too much on any nascent point of any character, trying to give them more than what they're really just needed just to get the story to where it needs to be.
I think the person that wasn't fleshed out was probably Ethan, even though he was prominent in the story and was around. I think he had the least of the character, even though he had some development, but not that much.
Yeah, the one thing that was like that I felt like I was like, oh, I want to know more about that was when he was like, I used to know him and we used to be friends, but he was weird. Like, I get it. Okay, it's Ethan and Doug, and like they used to be friends and now they're not. But like in this universe, I'd like to know more about that. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and I would have took Zach as like being the Clint Eastwood of the story. Lone guy coming to the town to fix shit up.
Yeah.
Did it ever feel like the inside references ever weighed down the story at any point? Were the characters not allowed to breathe because they constantly had to refer back to their original satire?
No, that, like I said, that's why, like, I at first when I read it, because I actually read it twice, back to back. And the first time I was torn because, like, I wanted it to be basically the reference of the cartoons, but then like there was these parts that had nothing to do with the cartoons, and you got to see like these characters in a different way. And then I start to get wrapped up in that part of it. And then something funny would happen with a reference to like Ethan or Doug or Zach or whoever. And it would snap me back to the cartoon and take me out of it. So once I got through that the first time, I had to go back and read it knowing that like, okay, now these are established characters with their own. It's not just clipped audio over a funny cartoon. You know what I mean? Like this is actually a story. And I had to go back and reread it that way. Yeah.
James Hayes asks, he says, is CAMEL's art style going to meet the approval of the average reader, even as a parody? How broad is the appeal for CAMEL's art style, would you say? Or is it also niche?
I think it would probably get more acceptance than, say, like a Narwhal, but I can see people being highly critical of it.
Can I go off script real quick?
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
Go fuck yourself, Twitless.
Always off script for that.
My assumption here when I'm reading this is that CAMEL wanted that, like I was saying earlier, with the garish color. Like he wants that, and he wants because man, some of these pages are busy. There's a lot going on, and I because
almost
it's
overly.
so right, and because it's so consistent, and because everything is ratcheted up to 9, if not 11 at times. I'm assuming it's all intentional and consistent. And then as you're reading the story and as you go back and read it again, you pick up more and more little things that are embedded within every page. So for your average reader, I'd compare it to like Ditko's, when Ditko took Doctor Strange into the abyss, and it would just be this kaleidoscope LSD trip of color and stuff going on that was weird. Imagine a whole book of that, and there's a place for that, but I don't think your average reader is going to enter into this, nor do I think this book is intended for just your average reader because of that.
Yeah.
But man, the art, there's definite strengths to the art, and there's some individual panels that are really well constructed and very well done, that if it was calmed down a little bit, which I think if you look at his more recent campaign, Boots and Heels, you see that he's calmed it down and, can break it out and show that, the garishness, the busyness of this was intentional for the style and the story versus what his style can do.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to address James Hayes. He's asking about the margins. Well, I think technically this is a scan, James Hayes. So I think art is actually literally edge to edge on the pages.
Yeah, it's edge to edge on the page, and there is actually no problem with the binding. He kept his bleed solid. He the pre-press on it looks good. You might argue that there's a little bit of like some finer detail that maybe fell in on maybe one of the double pages, but like in one of the double page spreads, Zach's fist is the crease for the seam goes right through like the back of his hand, and you can still see like the open hole in the back of his glove clearly. So, he handled his bleeds very nicely. There's no overlap. There's no, double fold or anything like that. It's just in the scan that we've got showing up here on the screen.
Yeah, like that's the crease, right? Like if you see the guy with the yellow ear to the right here, and then that's the binding. That's the
where it's spread open. That's where we spread the package open essentially, and displayed it for
lift and separate, if you will.
Yes. Delicately unfolded the petals of the pages. Son of Liberty Radio. So it sounds like universal praise thus far for Camel's book, but he points out, I don't think people are buying this for an epic story. I also think this is targeting CG consumers specifically too. Not many normies are picking this up. How would you address that?
That's all right. Shit. That's fine.
No, it's true. That's exactly it. Because James Hayes asked a similar question earlier. He's like, "How would you I don't remember his exact words, but basically, how would you market this to someone who doesn't know the CG lore?"
But then, like, by that,
it'd be hard to. It would be hard to. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it would be hard to. If anything, you'd have to at least show them a cartoon. Even if they don't know who these people are, you'd have to at least show them the cartoon and say, look, this is what it's based on.
Applying that logic, like, why would I think that anybody would want any of the music I make? Of course, I'm literally targeting Comicsgate people because they're the only ones who really know about it. So it's like, why are you limiting yourself? And then it'll be like, okay, so I did make an album that had nothing to do with Comicsgate. They're like, why didn't you refer Comicsgate? Why didn't you talk about anything that had to do with Comicsgate? Because you can't ever really win with that freaking argument. There's always decisions and other people. You can't please everybody. All right? And then at the same time, we all knew him for making Hell Salad and Comicsgate stuff. So why would he not do that to be his first outing? And it's appreciated. I think Matt C said it right there. He said this is an actual parody book that the genre fits the story and the style and all that.
Yeah, but you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like, we all knew the cartoons, you know what I mean? So why wouldn't this be his first outing to like get an audience, so that on his second book, which has, as far as I could tell, nothing to do with any kind of CG lore.
I'm sorry, I got a little fiery about that one. I didn't get upset. I was just kind of trying to get it out there.
I think it's important. It's an important distinction to make, is that obviously Camel's a smart guy. He has talent. He saw a way to get his proverbial foot in the door with a customer base, which was do cartoons that are going to draw people in, and then do a book associated with that to, build a name for himself, and then go off and do whatever he wants to do. And I think he executed it very well with this.
From that business.
If there's any criticism outside of the context of the book, it's the delay from when it could. If this would have hit probably 6 months to a year earlier, it probably would have had more resonance than it does now. But I think that delta is very minor. And at the end of the day, I think everybody that's getting it I haven't heard anybody complain about it. I certainly can't complain about the production quality of it. I got the hologram cover, the foil cover. It's one of the best covers that I've gotten from any CG book. And the whole from the way the book was packaged to how all the extras that came with it were handled, it was very well done. So, and delays happen. So I don't know. If you want to nitpick, you're definitely going to be able to find things to nitpick about.
Sure.
But overall, I think it was a high execution.
Speaking of nitpicks, James Hayes asks if there are too many jokes.
Nope, not enough. Can't have enough jokes.
No, I think it was pretty balanced. Balanced.
If anything, it surprisingly takes itself overly seriously.
Yeah.
Mm.
And yeah, the Zach character I think is the main part of that, except for the fact that he puts the crown on. But other than that, he's like the most serious character. And then the Ethan character is a lot more serious in this than he is in the cartoons. So, even though he does have his own, funny one-liners here and there. So there is a little bit of groundness to keep the action and everything serious. But then like you have the other surrounding characters that just, the jokes are just, it's the right amount.
There's enough jokes where I didn't feel like there was enough room for recurring jokes. That's always a good thing. The first time it's funny, second time it's funny, third time it's hilarious. That type of thing. I think he'd done it a couple times, at least with the story and the plot. He did the recurring thing because you got to keep it kind of based in the story beats. But at the same time, there was enough jokes for each page where like he wasn't repeating them either, or bringing like old jokes back as like a what do they call that?
A callback.
Yeah,
Callback, yeah.
No, but like a how they show you something in the beginning of the movie and they'll come back later. What do they call that?
Callback.
That's a callback.
It's another. Okay, whatever. All right.
So J Dollar's making demands in the chat. He's
Fix my chat again.
he's disparaging the panel, but he insists on hearing criticism. So we heard about the font and the garishness of the colors. Anything to say about Camel's writing that could be improved upon or possibly modified?
Like I said earlier, it's a simple story, so some of the writing comes across as simple that might be intended. So because we're dealing with a parody book and stuff and stuff like that, I'd probably have to see something else that he wrote to be more critical of his writing.
I guess if I had one critique, I kind of hinted at it earlier, and it's that the book does take itself a little overly seriously than what I expected out of it. If you watch the Hail Salad cartoons, it's a joke a minute, and in this, and I don't know if it's because of the nature of how he's trying to progress the story, which he does a good job with, or if it's just that he wanted to do a more serious take because of the medium change from animation to comic, and certain things don't translate. That would be it. It's that it didn't have the same punch that the cartoons had as far as the laugh a minute type deal. But the story works as a prequel.
I agree.
It does.
With that.
I was happy because like, oh yeah, they're just gonna go off to space to their next destination, and this is what's gonna happen in between. Not much really to do,
No, I agree with what you said. That basically goes back to me saying earlier, like how I was torn. Like I wanted it to be the cartoon, and then all of a sudden, I'm dealing with like these backstories of a war. I mean, granted, he's using funny terms like troll-la-la and troll Jan horse, and all this like funny pun innuendo type stuff, but. It was still like we're learning about like basically a war happened, and this land went from being like this happy-go-lucky place to this miserable place, and it was like this isn't the cartoon. I want the cartoon, and then I get
allegory of soy.
Yeah, and then I get wrapped up, but then I would eventually get wrapped up in these character developments and in this story arc and stuff, and then all of a sudden a funny joke would happen that would remind me of the cartoon and almost pull me out of it,
Right.
And
well, and like
back into it.
And one of the good things, maybe it's both got its positives and its negatives, is some of the things you knew were coming because of the cartoon. So like when they find a giant footprint that Fraga falls in, and then the narration bubble is like, they were all concerned about the footprint. The truth would soon terrify him. Well, that it's the ominous tone of Doug is coming, and it plays into it well, but at the same time, it's like it's just. I think it could have been done a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like it lands well, but it feels like there's a couple of moments like that could have landed a little bit better. But this is one of those things where we're taking a scalpel and we're going in and trying to remove something that doesn't need to be removed or find a flaw. So and again, man, one of the things I really appreciated was the Wenger character. That was just the one-liners here and there that were just like almost non sequiturs were just perfect.
He was kind of a MacGuffin too.
The other thing
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
I was gonna say the other thing that confused me was the Malin character. He went from that prism-looking thing to the Cerebus-looking thing, and I didn't understand.
I didn't
how
understand
or
that
why.
either.
Yeah,
Because he was a creation of Kelsey. It was a Cerebus dog, but then he had the hologram thing that was making food because they couldn't eat the pixie dirt and stuff like that, the soy. So they were trying to make their own food, and they were like, "Yo, we gotta get the hell out of here." So they tried to, and then I don't know, freaking they were trying to get out of it, and he did it wrong, and it killed him, or I don't know what the hell happened. Yeah, it's
because he had a
weird.
different name. He was called like
He attached,
Vor,
yeah,
right?
or VOR. Yeah, he attached it to the cut off. What the hell did this happen? It was so weird. That's kind of that one too, and then how Doug switched, how everybody changed, but like Doug changed to a foot. I kind of missed that at the end. I had to go back actually right now and look and remind myself what happened. There's a couple points like that he didn't really sit on and explain certain things. Or
Whereas
kind of,
like the Cecil one, like too, like why is he? I mean, we all know like the
well,
reference.
John actually never existed. That's the thing, though. John never existed. I was
he was
for
like
him.
he was like a virtual reality thing and like a hologram.
He's like a Jarvis.
Yeah, and then he turned into this solid floating head. Like,
Well, that was from what Kelsey made from that machine, and then when he fried it because he was trying to break them out of the prison, which I do appreciate the backgrounds and all the castle stuff. That was good stuff.
Yeah,
but then the dog's head got cut off. I don't freaking know. It was weird.
I get like the Cecil, I get the Anna, I get the Kelsey, like all
thought
those
Anna
transformations.
I thought Anna had a good story.
Yeah, all those transformations were very like, okay, I get it. I see why that happened. But like his transformation was a little like, okay, well that just happened. I guess I'm just gonna go with it and keep reading. So that's basically how I felt about it. Yeah.
He uses a lot of real estate on these pages. How did that read as well? Just the density of everything that you have to parse through. There's dialogue, there's exposition, there's characters in every inch of this page. Did any of that feel overwhelming or also take away from the experience at all?
Well, it did, but I think it goes back to that, and I hate to keep on using this word, but it's the garish layout, and I have to assume it's intentional because it's continued throughout and it's done well, in that sense that if you're going to overdo it, he overdid it in the right ways. But yeah, I mean, there's some panel construction things that I do that I don't like seeing usually. Like you're seeing on this page right here, where you've got kind of the panels that are just overlapping, and it feels super busy. But that's the style that the whole book is in, so it's consistent throughout the book. It's not like you run into just a series of 5 or 6 pages where the panel construction almost seems chaotic. It's done that way throughout the whole book, and he's breaking borders everywhere, both with dialogue and with imagery and with action. So it comes across as it's all intentional. Could it have been done a different way and still resonate? I don't know if it could have, because I think it all kind of plays into what he's doing with the book as a parody.
I think it's supposed to feel messy. Because I think he's going for the aesthetic of the cartoon, which, if you remember, is just like a bunch of it's like an acid trip. It really, like, those cartoons are an acid trip, and I think that he's trying to relay that vibe into print, and I think it's supposed to feel messy purposely. Yeah.
So
thanks for making my point, Aldous. Thanks for making my point.
No problem.
It complements the.
I'm trying to say that the whole time.
It complements the source material rather than detract from it. It sounds like so.
Correct. It doesn't try to reinvent it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. And I guess here's a splash page of Anna's cleavage to close up on. Maybe we'll get into final thoughts here as we ponder exactly how wet she is jumping out of the water. Dark Gift, would you like to start us off?
On final thoughts? This was a very well packaged, hung piece of work. No, no, I don't like giving numbers. You know that I'm not a big giving numbers guy. For comics, I'll give a number for like a movie or TV show, but for comics, I'd say this was like, for all like the faults it has more pros than cons. So it's definitely worth a read. If for some people, I can see why like looking at it might give them a headache and they might not be able to make it through. But if you can, give it a read. And I mean, I kind of would like to see where this goes. Like, okay, now that we're I want to see more of this world. I've got like this He-Man vibe thing going. I need to know what's going to happen between He-Man and Skeletor now. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I did like that. I did like the medieval kind of aesthetic to it. It helped.
What final thoughts would you have, Finatra, that you would like to add?
It's fun. Splash page, a literal splash page. That was cool. That was kind of funny.
Yeah,
Kind of like then it
exactly.
just made me think of Splash the movie, and I was like, this is multi-layered, crazy, trippy shit, man.
I think that's kind of what we were talking about too with the puns, right? There's puns layered throughout all of this, and it's pretty deft. There's some really deft little things that are done very well and executed well. And then there's a couple of moments where it just, I don't know, it could probably hit a little bit better, but overall it's really good, man. I would rate it, nothing's a 10 out of 10, but I would rate this a high 7 out of 10.
Yep, 7.5. I was thinking, and I'd come back for a part 2.
For sure. Yeah, I'm there.
Did it lose points for garishness? Is that where?
A little bit.
I
Little
suck
bit.
at everything, so it don't matter. I got no right to to
Yeah,
grade anything really, because I suck
For
at
me,
everything.
the busyness and the garishness did kind of detract a little bit. It's weird. It added to the experience, but at the same time, it took away points. I can't explain why it would do that.
No, I'm right there with you, DG. I can't really put my finger on it, but it's part of it, and there's a reason for it, but at the same time, you're like, eh.
It wouldn't be the same book without it.
Yeah. You know what I would compare it to? Greg Tanichi in Rick Remender's Low. There's a couple pages on that where you turn the page and like the whole page is like this yellow, orange, or blue, green, and it's just everything's in that shade, and it kind of takes you out of it. It'd be like reading an entire book that's that way, where it's all encompassing and it's just so much, and you get used to it, but it's still jarring. It's that it doesn't take anything away from you wanting to read it again. It's just that's one of the things that you still remember is like, man, that was just so jarring that it was consistently that way.
Yeah.
You could say 499 colors are memorable.
Well, in a bad way.
In a bad way, yeah.
Infamous.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would say infamous.
We are still raising money for children that were blinded by that book. There's a GoFundMe somewhere for all the children that were damaged.
I would say about this book here, definitely made for physical, to be read physically. And I'm big. I like digital books, and some of them look really good, but this is definitely made for a physical copy.
Yeah, I didn't even realize like how true that was until we started scrolling through pages here. But man, I'm looking at the same pages in my copy that we've got up on screen, and man, the digital just doesn't do these justice
at all.
Yeah, the colors are super bright and vibrant, and it's not in a bad way like $4.99.
Yeah, I usually just do quick and dirty scans of the books, just so I have pages to show during the review, because people want to see something a little bit more than what they got.
Would you up your pirate game a little bit, Well Read?
Yeah, it sounds like sex. You're freaking gross.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to
dirty.
I'm not trying to start a business or anything. It's just it's mainly to just have something to present the audience more than what was shown on the Indiegogo page. And usually when you're already reviewing the book, like you can have a couple of pages to present to people. It would be nice to have a camera and just like hold up the book itself. Like Dark Gift, when he has a physical copy, he will do that. You don't always get like the best sense of what the book is from that either, because it's not as good as a digital. But scans, I think, are not bad either. So,
well, the holofoil cover, whatever this is, it's really gorgeous. It really looks good. It's a wraparound cover. Well, it's got a variant thing in the back. But, really good stuff.
We did address the humor early in the review, James Hayes, so you can always head back there and check that out if you'd like. Yeah. All right. So it sounds like quite enjoyable all around, and everybody was quite happy with the experience and looking forward to more. So
there's a couple things.
I was really pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple things that you could say about it, but for the most part, it was an enjoyable read, and it wasn't. And it felt pretty good to not read a book and feel overwhelmed by too much minutia and And like you say, it's all busy and stuff like that, but it wasn't really that busy.
Well, like
Not to
Matt's-
me, not to my eyes. Right?
like Matt C said, he goes, I don't want a pretty version of this comic. I want it ugly, and it's true. Like as I'm reading this book, like at some points it was hurting my eyes to look at it, and again, maybe that's because I was looking at it on a screen. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But as I'm like sitting there like rubbing my eyes and adjusting my glasses, I was like, yeah, I can't see this book being any other way.
There was a picture of Queen Z, like a little panel of her, and he freaking nailed it. It looked, he made her look really good, like gorgeous. Like, damn, she looks good. Just like cartoony face, but when you do it right, it looks cute, you know. And he really nailed it on this.
Oh,
one
before
panel.
she changed, yeah, I know.
Yeah,
what you're talking about.
she was looking hot. Yeah, she was looking really freaking cool though.
Yeah,
looks hot.
But yeah, you don't want like a nice trimmed, gutter border, panel for panel, pretty version of this book. You want it to be like, you almost want to have the headache at the end of it all because it's part of the experience.
It's like it is. It's like taking a mescaline ride, and it's that light headache that doesn't quite go away for 12 to 14 hours the next day. Like it's the price you got to pay for taking the ride. It's
Exactly.
worth every minute of it.
Good analogy, Aldous. if we were in a virtual, I'd give you a fist bump for that one right there.
I don't know if we want to just have a little refresher, just for reference's sake. This is the original material that the book, I mean, it was based on even before the material the book is based on came to fruition. Yeah, so this was CAMEL's original parodies off of the CG streams, but he was splicing it into old episodes of Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and these are those old cartoons, the ones that people endeared people to CAMEL early on when he first joined CDU. Let's watch just a little bit of it and reminisce. Actually, maybe joining us for the watch party, everybody please welcome to the screen Dr. Camillus Moonson. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you
Hello,
for
Cameron.
having me.
How are you?
Whoa.
How are you guys?
Moonerson.
Good.
Thank you
Yes.
for having me.
Are we giving you acid flashbacks watching these old cartoons?
I mean, they're not that old. It's not like they're from the 70s or anything.
No, this is internet time.
No,
Yeah,
screw internet time. This is CG time. This is like from the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, might as well be, right?
It's like liquid television shit right here. This is good.
Yeah.
4 years in CG is like
40 years
85.
in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, so
We did so much drugs back then, in the old days.
the old days of CG.
Yeah.
Yeah, make this
how many
big when you
shrooms?
play it. Yeah.
How many shrooms did you have to consume for each of these episodes, Camel?
I only did shrooms once in my life, and that's actually the impetus for all of Hail Salad.
That one experience.
Well, yeah. See, what happened was we did them on my bachelor party, and I was like, God, if we had Hail Salad cartoons to watch at that would have been amazing. And so that's why I made them. I was like, this would be fun to like sit and binge watch. And when you're on shrooms, 10 minutes is like 4.5 hours. So I was like, if I make 4 or 5 minute episodes, like, yeah, we would just, I would probably die from laughing. That was, that was the point. So
It's the most epic acid trip ever.
that's all
Now
I
you
was
get-
trying for. Yeah.
Now you get a fist bump.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. But
Well,
thanks, guys. I think you were very nice. I think you guys got almost everything. I didn't feel like I was yelling at the screen at all. So,
We have heard it.
I liked it.
We have heard of creators doing that, though. Was there anything you felt like we missed?
I didn't see all of it. I woke up and I got over here and I was like, oh shit, they started. And then I was like, oh, they're doing this without me. I get that. Okay, so I bounced. I think you got everything, really. I mean, I don't think there was too much that I objected to that I thought like, oh, well, they don't know what their ass from their elbow. I was like, yeah, that's either fair or they got that little in joke. One thing that I would say is I tried real hard enough to make it so that this comic was self-sustaining. Like you don't have to watch the cartoon. I think a lot of people feel they do, but this is part of a larger argument because there's a lot of people who watch the cartoon who feel that it's only good because they know CG lore. And I know for a fact that that's just not true because I have tons of fans who have messaged me and they're like, they don't know anything about CG. And, it took off on one college campus where a bunch of kids were watching it and passing it around to each other. And so, because of that, I think the non sequiturs and, the pacing, all of that kind of work together and, the trippiness of it in that sort of early 2000s Adult Swim style. And so I think with the cartoon to be like, oh, well, you need to know who I think you guys proved it. Actually, you proved my point because none of you knew who Queen Z was, but it still worked within the confines of the story. So I think that it's difficult to remove your knowledge of these characters and go in fresh because you already know it. But I think if you were completely fresh to it, I don't think you would be confused. I mean, I don't think so anyway.
Well, it's good to hear that because, like we were saying earlier, like I thought it would be hard to sell this to somebody, but I guess because we're entrenched in it, that like for us to explain it to somebody, we would feel like we would have to explain who these people are. But I guess, you
lost
would,
all this.
Oh yeah, look at that. I guess you would have to. I guess it's nice to know that you don't have to know. Like like because we are so entrenched in it, like you don't. It's nice to know that people out there are enjoying it that have no clue who Ethan Van Sciver or Doug
because we
Tenable
never
are.
reference them like that. There's never a moment where I'm like, you have to know exactly what happened here to get maybe to get an inside joke, but not to get the plot.
You got a bunch of inside jokes, but you gave them their own little story, or their personalities for the story. I've noticed that, and you don't kind of like you said with the Gen Z or the Queen Z. It didn't really matter her name. Actually, it was just she did what she had to do. And
I'm 90% sure that they call her Zoe at one moment because I didn't want to talk about it too much.
Okay,
but if I don't reiterate, so if you missed it, you missed it. That's
well, at the risk of sounding redundant, what did you reference when you were writing this? And I actually don't mean the CG parodies. I mean this the idea of creating a unique plot with unique characters based on something that was satire.
Oh, I mean, this is the Iliad. I mean, which is funny because the Iliad, as I'm writing it and getting it down, I realized is 100% the Wizard of Oz. And so there are moments in here where I'm like, oh, this is right out of the Wizard of Oz. And so I, tried to structure it so it could be either or. But essentially at the end, like when I get to the sequel, which is going to be the Odyssey, and then it'll be a trilogy. The final one is going to be a mix of who is it? Julius Caesar and what's the other? Is it King Lear? I'm thinking of. I think it's King Lear. So it's going to be a combination of those two stories, and so like there is going to be a full arc. And the way I look at it, like with all of the backstory, the lore, the characters, the map, the places, is I just wanted to make Game of Thrones for kids, and that's really what it is. So
welcome back, August.
It's like a big, He-Man world, but I don't spend too much time talking about why Ethan has magic electric powers or, how the pixie dust works. I mean, it's a fantasy, so I don't really need to get into that.
There is one thing you got, because I mentioned it before, and Finatra, was lost as I was. The Malin character, he went from being Vor to Cerberus.
Well, he never existed. Malin never existed. He's Jarvis.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying,
as a hologram wherever
he is the hologram. Like,
yeah.
No, I get that. But like,
so you don't even know who Malin is, but like in the cartoon, since you know the cartoon, now you know the origin. But at the same time, like if you didn't know the cartoon at all, well, that's just part of the story.
But my question is, how does he go? Like I didn't get, and I don't know if I missed something, but I didn't get how he went from being the hologram to being the solid head.
He put the thing on the dog, and in comic book magic, it just attached to the body, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think there's a moment where they need a magic crystal to get out of the cell.
And he killed the freaking hologram.
That I got
Yeah,
that.
and so what happened was Doug had the crystal. He kept it around his neck. But then he uses the crystal to resurrect the whale.
That was good.
Yeah,
and so they didn't know how they were going to get out. And so because Malin had a crystal in his skull, he's like, I can sacrifice myself. So as he's dying off, Kelsey grabs his essence seconds before, alters the hologram so he looks like a dog, and then puts that centerpiece on the Cerebus.
So John was there the whole time. I'm sorry, yeah, because he was there from the beginning. So John was a Cerebus then, or was he the hologram?
He was both. That's what I was trying to figure out.
It was Kaiser Sose right at the end.
That's cool, man. You know what? I'm just gonna read it again and be just get into it again.
Yeah, he was both characters. I just didn't understand how he went from one version of himself to the other. Like I lost that somewhere. Yeah, that was my only, I guess, complaint.
I don't want to say, you have to reread it, but there's levels in there that once you get it, you're like, oh shit, I see it now. I see what he was doing.
Well, I think that's the main thing. You want to reread. You want that book to be reread a few times,
Oh, there's a couple. There's a moment in there where they get to the boat, and John's first thing is, he says, "All right, everyone grab an oar."
Yeah, I saw that.
Right.
Or the pie. You've got the Greek letter pi on the side.
Oh yeah. There's that. There's a part where they're in the pixie fields, and the trolls start coming out, and they're growing straight freaks.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So there's little moments in there.
There's all of it. There's a bunch in there, dude. There's 20 jokes. That SS titty at the end.
Oh
that was funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's stuff in there. You're like, oh, okay. Again, is it necessary to know CG lore? Maybe for the inside jokes, but outside of that, is for the story? No, I don't think so.
What's up, artist?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, so now that you've established yourself with this book and all the lessons that you took away with these characters and building this world, I'm assuming this isn't your first attempt at writing a comic, or is this your first published work?
I guess it'd be my first mainstream published work. I've been working on Boots and Heels for 10 years. And so I've been poring over that and editing it and going back and forth. And, it's a 12-issue series. So, but my background is film editing. I worked for A&E. I've won film festivals. And so the storytelling aspect of it, when to have the slowdown moments, when to have the action, how long to have both of those really is a skill set I think I've developed. Because you guys were saying earlier, you thought it was 32 pages. Well, it's 40. But to me, as an editor, that's great to hear, because it means that it went by fast and you didn't realize how long it actually was.
How many pages did how many pages did you chop off of it when you originally had
none.
it in drafts, and you just...
No, it was 32 pages. I added 8 for a stretch goal, and those 8 were the backstory,
Cool.
with the Trollala land and everything about, how Cecil and Anna turned into their insect people. So that I was glad to be able to put that in there. If I had another 8 pages or so, I'd probably spend more time with Cecil and Anna. I wanted to do a scene where they were trying to escape and they realized they couldn't without the crystal. We didn't really have time for that. And then I wanted to have a scene where Anna was so depressed that Cecil and Kelsey put a little play on for her.
It looked like that could have happened in the beginning.
Yeah, because there's a stage, and there's these pillars, and there's a curtain, and that was set up for that.
It was the King's Court. The prison was the King's Court.
And I was like, we could have Cecil in a little wig and makeup, and I thought it could be endearing for everyone to get together. It also would create more of a relationship with Anna and the dog before the dog gets his head cut off. So there were just little moments in there that I thought would have been better. But again, sometimes being able to cut things down is actually a blessing, because otherwise it becomes a little verbose and you're like, this could get a little boring. And then when it came to Ethan, I purposefully omitted any backstory from him because I'm saving that for the second and third one.
I mentioned that. Yeah, it seemed like he was prominent. He had a presence, but he just didn't have that much of an arc. He didn't really change throughout the story, but I guess
Yeah,
all right.
his arc is over the trilogy, whereas the other ones were a little bit more because he's the only consistent character. Like Zach is barely going to be in the sequel. He probably won't be in the third one at all. And so it's like I needed to make sure that as a character, he develops as the reader develops, over this.
You got to bring him back for like 5 minutes, and then whatever happens, but you got to have him come back and be like, "Oh no, man, all you guys are crazy."
Well, no, and see, that's, when Camel's talking, I'm kind of using the Odyssey and then maybe the Aeneid or something as the continuation for it. To me, like you got to make Zach Sisyphus, right? As he goes insane, being punished, pushing that boulder eternally up the hill, but always getting in his own way, and it never works out for him because he gets almost to the top, and then he rethinks the entire thing and deletes the channel and goes back down.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have him as everyone is sort of a conflated character, like because right now technically Zach is Odysseus because he's the one who comes up with the idea to use Wanger as the horse, as the and then. But then that would also make Ethos the Achilles character. But Achilles isn't the biggest character in the Iliad. I mean, he's there, but he's not. It's not like centered around him or anything. But that there's a reference to that early on. Like he gets bitten in the ankles, and that's what collapses him. The same way with Achilles. And then that's why when he gets the magic shoes, he has like this extra power. It doesn't hurt him as much. So, yeah, I think I lost my train of thought, but
you talking about Zach and Achilles?
No, but
Zach is in the next one. He's going to be much closer to King Agamemnon. He kind of goes off on his own way, and then at some point, Ethos and him have to meet up again, and sort of recall the tale.
Agamemnon, king of the Spartans, head of the Greek army at Troy.
You put a Fetterman on me or something.
No, but it made sense because I mentioned earlier how like it made me like want to know more about his backstory and like where does this battle take him next, you know what I mean? Like, and I referenced like the He-Man, like you obviously like have a little He-Man influence on this, at least on this story.
Yeah, I think I think about Star Wars. For me, I used to love in the first one when Obi-Wan would talk about the Clone War. I didn't need to see the Clone War. The Clone War in my head is still so much cooler than any of that prequel garbage. And so that's why I like having moments where it's like, oh, we're talking about the war that Ethos used to be in. Or we're talking about the potential of the cultural war, which was like a culture war reference. So like there are moments in there that I'm like, yeah, there's backstory and lore that you don't know and you never will. And I think that makes it a little bit more interesting. You'll get pieces here and there and it'll be like, oh, okay, I can kind of start figuring out how this used to be and all that. But like, when Obi-Wan meets Vader, you just know there's a history there, but you don't really know like what the real history is. And so I tried to do the same thing here with Ethos and Smuggler's. And it was just like, Smuggler's is infuriated at him, but it doesn't really matter. It's just like, yeah, you know that they have a history. And I think sometimes that's enough.
You and your friends betrayed me and mocked me.
Right. But
it's like, and it makes him so petty too. Like that's what you're pissed about.
Yeah.
Like the fact that like the fact that the reader wants to know, even if you only give them tidbits and never go fully into it, it's like holding that carrot in front of them, and just bringing them along for the ride.
Yeah, I always think that's better storytelling. I've always thought like, as much as I like the Batman movies, my least favorite is Batman Begins because it tells you everything. I don't want to know everything. I think living in mystery in a fantasy world is what makes it work. And so, because again, it's almost like the case of like a horror movie where you see the monster. Well, it's a lot scarier when you don't see the monster. It just is. Right. So unless that monster is fucking amazing and the effects are terrific, it still only works when you see Jaws for 2% of the movie or the alien and aliens for the last 3% of the movie. If you saw them the whole time, then it's like, well, this is just a big goofy fucking animatronic thing. So
Right.
I
Predator
think
Predator only works because you don't see him until the climactic moment. So
right, yeah, that's true. That's right, because even him, right? It's like he's always shrouded, and he's got that hologram, like
yep, you
see-through.
see the silhouette, but you never see
Yeah.
the visage. And the visage is always the most. It's no different. Well, in Alien, you referenced it, but it's that moment when the maw opens and you actually see it, and you see the terrifying aspect of the creature. You always want to hide that.
Yeah.
Up until that moment, and you did a good. You carry that forward in this, and it's a good work. I am curious though. So we talked a little bit. One of the negatives that we all kind of agreed with in this was the garishness, for lack of a better word, of the color and the layout and stuff. Obviously, that was intentional, but there is definitely that love of color that's evident in the stuff on your Boots and Heels page. Should we expect something like this with Boots of Heels, or are you dialing it back a little?
Well, you can if you bring the campaign page up. I put 8 new interiors up.
I got
So
you.
you can
Well read
see
if you
what it
want.
looks like.
Is it the Boots and Heels or the Hail Salad campaign?
I'm sharing the screen right now.
Boots and Heels.
I got you.
Okay.
I had it open over here. Oh, you got it already? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you scroll down, there's actually I think it's 12 pages of interiors, and you'll see it's. I wouldn't say it's exactly like Hail Salad. It's laid out different. It's like way down. You got to keep going for a minute.
Well, I imagine you learned a freaking hell of a lot going through this process.
Yeah, keep going, keep going.
Finally,
There it is. So these are the interiors here.
Yeah, a
So
little bit more restraint with your panel for sure.
Yeah, and they're I don't
It's
break the
styled back.
panel as much. I don't want this to be the acid trip that Hail Salad is, and so it's a lot more square panels. It's also more in reference to like the Wallywood sci-fi era, and that's why they have the fishbowl helmets, and
Yep.
you have like the tech kind of vomiting on itself with all of the gadgets and doodads, and it's just like I don't know what any of this stuff does, but that's just the kind of style of the space world that they're in.
Yeah, definitely Hail Salad. Like I think I said before, it's like it's definitely an acid trip because those friggin' cartoons are an acid trip, and like yeah, this I like the vibrancy of the colors here, and they blend together better. When I say better, but like I guess more traditionally here than they did in Hail Salad.
Yeah, you could keep going down actually. Yeah, so yeah, it's a little bit more formatted. And I also have so what I do with every comic or whenever I set out to color is I establish a set of rules. And so the rules for this issue were essentially I have I think it was 24 colors for the palette, and I will never deviate from it. And so it's like if I don't have a true red, I use the auburn or whatever it is, and that gives it a really specific kind of flavor. And then when I will move away from that is where I want to do like a hologram thing or a rainbow thing. Then you get all of the colors, but then that's what makes that panel special. So, but I'll never isolate something out of the rainbow. I'll only use, I use a rainbow as its own color. And so once I establish those rules, then it's easier for me to create a consistent look that doesn't seem jarring. And I think that's why every panel flows from panel to panel to panel. And yeah, sometimes it can be garish, but like if that's the style I'm trying to go for, it's the style I'm trying to go for.
Right.
And what about the lessons that you learned from Hail Salad? Which of those do you carry over into the storytelling of Boots and Heels?
Well, I made Hail Salad after Boots and Heels. So if anything, a lot of stuff that I learned from Boots and Heels, I put into Hail Salad. I've since gone back and re-edited like a lot of the stuff in Boots and Heels. So it's, my current take on storytelling. I think really what it comes down to for all storytelling is just everything ever is a joke. And it doesn't have to be a funny joke, but there are reasons.
Everything should have conflict, and conflict can create some humor and all that.
Well,
type of
yeah,
stuff.
like you need to have a setup. And like that's what infuriates. Sometimes I'll watch a movie or I'll read a comic, and it's just like, here's a magic sword from Google Land. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I love that place.
Yeah. You know, and I'm just like, yeah, that needed a little bit more setup. And so I try to make sure in Boots and Heels, especially in Boots and Heels, because it's a time travel piece, that everything is set up. And if you guys could see the notes I have on this, I mean, it's probably about this thick of just, legal pad of just text of me writing like, okay. And then, like arrows pointing from one place goes to another place. And so, yeah, I think doing a time travel story actually forced me to be a better storyteller, because it pushed me to tell a story that was it had to make sense. Like there was no way I could leave anything on the cutting room floor, because otherwise the whole thing would fall apart.
Well, so how do you walk that line of like telling the reader everything you want them to know, so that you feel like everything occurs in a logical sequence and within its own context, but then still maintaining enough mystery where you're not revealing too much and keeping them engaged and curious and guessing?
Yeah, write a book on that, and you can make money off that answer, Camel.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like saying like how do you
Sorry,
pick up models at a like these are the trade secrets here.
I guess I get criticized for asking essay
the
essay
game
level
is to
questions.
be told, not to be told. Well, Red, you try to ask it, but no, that's a good question. I mean, more writers would think about that.
Yeah, I mean that's like, look, I've explained it like as an artist, like you have a symbiotic relationship with the page. As you're drawing, the page communicates back to you. I sound like a total loser, I know, but it tells you like, okay, you put the fist here, you got to put something back here. And now you got to put something behind his head. You got to frame this. And so like, as much as I can see it in my head, it doesn't, the page communicates with you. And I think the story does the same thing. It's just like, you don't give too much away, because you got to talk about that later. And I also think too, like, I don't think I have a boring panel in any book I've ever done, because there's always something happening. Everything, I don't think everything needs to be an inciting incident, but like, I would never make something that's throwaway. There's nothing that bothers me more than when I watch a Netflix show. I'm like, okay, the last 5 minutes was garbage. We didn't need any of that,
Well, visually exciting doesn't necessarily correlate to like action packed. You know what I mean? Something can be visually stimulating and exciting just by being there.
Yeah. Well, I think the 3 pages, the 3 black and whites you just looked at, none of them are action oriented, but you can make them engaging with the light source, with the composition, with the modeling of the characters. And that's, I think, the best type of storytelling. You read some of these comics or watch some of these shows, and it very genuinely is people sitting, drinking coffee. Like this is, over the shoulder, reverse over the shoulder. Like there's so much more you can do. And I think a great example that I always use when people ask me about storytelling is there's a scene in Jackie Brown where Max Cherry goes to her house and she's making coffee. And it really has nothing to do with what's happening in the scene, but you learn a lot from that. And she has an independent action. She doesn't exist to only answer his questions for the scene. She's living her life, and she's in a robe and she's making coffee. And the audience recognizes a lot of things. They recognize that it's morning. They recognize that she's a busy person. They recognize that she's not really engaged in his conversation. And so like, these are tiny little subconscious things that you can add to a scene that make it more interesting on a subconscious level that you might not recognize otherwise.
Well, that's about creating conflict, you create that tension.
You create
anything could happen. A fight could happen, a joke, somebody could try to break some ice, or somebody could say something slick, and anything could happen in that moment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and that's how I try to approach almost all my scenes. There's always something happening, even if it doesn't seem like there is.
Yep.
So I'm curious, Camel, because you mentioned that sequence in Jackie Brown. It's a really good sequence with Pam Grier and Robert Forrester. But who in your mind carries the sequence? And the reason I asked the question is I think that tells a little bit of something about what you're keying in on.
You will be graded for this answer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I guess. See, it's interesting because they keep cutting back to Max, and he doesn't. He just sits there. He just keeps asking.
Right, he's
her
static.
questions.
He's not dynamic.
static,
Pam's moving
yeah.
everywhere.
And
she's all over
moving
the
everywhere.
place.
But I think it's the conversation that really kind of propels it. But I would say, yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of a marriage, to be honest with you. I don't know. Even though he's static, I think the two of them work together seamlessly. So I mean, maybe you have a different answer, but
No, I'm just. I mean, I don't. There's no right answer on that.
oh, okay.
I was just curious on. It's it's up to interpretation. I'm always going to default to Forrester, just because he has a little bit. I think he has more gravitas in that sequence than Greer does.
I mean,
just
he's
because,
the one asking the questions too.
right?
So
He's in the power position and he's inquiring. But yeah, that's a phenomenal character-driven moment in a great movie that's based off an Elmore Leonard novel that everybody should read.
Yeah.
There's no right answer, Camel, but your answer was incorrect, unfortunately.
That's fine.
So when you I'm actually curious about your process here. So when you're preparing a comic book, I'm guessing, of course, you have an outline, but because you're also drawing your own work, do you not necessarily script out every panel? Do you sometimes just go to the page and then let the script come out of the art?
I mean, I don't know if this is. I just make the
reveal
the
all your
up.
secrets. Just
so there are moments where especially in Hail Salad, where it's like creating a set for like a comedy club. I don't know what the joke is, but I know where the punchline has to be. So there are moments where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have a wide panel here of just someone's head. I know for a fact that that's going to be a punchline. I don't know what the joke is yet. I'll come up with the joke when I'm writing it. So there's a couple parts like that where like that's how I almost have to write it backwards. But because I live in my own head and I don't have to answer to a writer or an artist, I mean, I'm allowed to do that.
Well, isn't it like the Marvel way, right? You plot it out, you draw it, then you script it.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And luckily enough, that's not an issue for me because, you know, some of it is comedy writing and, you know, you'd just be like, all right, just as long as there's enough of a setup here. And sometimes the jokes don't come to you right away. There were 3 or 4 panels where I just had like nothing. And then Joe Fulton was my editor and he was just like, are you going to put something there? And I'm like, yeah, I got to come up with something. I don't know what they're going to say yet. So
do your job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
We were talking earlier about your form, like how you compose, how you make your compositions. Like, do you take any inspiration from books that you grew up with or that you really like and kind of just go straight and pretty much like crap the whole setup and kind of do your own thing with it? Do you do anything like that?
Could you repeat that in a different
like
way?
If there was like an awesome page like you saw in Fantastic Four and it's like, I'm going to recreate this in this
oh,
page
okay.
here. Yeah.
Sorry
about that.
I think every person who is a mainstream artist, whether you're a filmmaker or a musician or whatever, you are, for the most part, your inspiration is over by 14. Mm-hmm. And everything that you have taken in by that point is what the artist that you become. And so like, you know, a lot of my stuff was the Jack Vetriano? The Vetriano, Valentino, sorry, I get these artists confused. But the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy. So I loved that series. And then I you know, X-Men, like a lot of the stuff that was Valentino, thank you. Yeah. So a lot of the stuff that was coming at that time. And then like I have a kind of a simplistic style that is very reminiscent of like a mix between Kirby and Bruce Timm. Mm-hmm. And so like there's sort of what's that?
No, in the pre-show, I was saying you can see in a lot of your panels that there's a lot of golden age, silver age, appreciation. And so when you're talking about Tim, I mean, Tim goes directly back. There was a documentary I think it was Up and Away, where he talks about like the Superman, the Fleischer Studios Superman films, like directly influenced his style. when it came to the Batman movie or anything that
Mhm.
he did, whether it was the crime story or whatever his comics were. It influenced all of his art, and that's that rotoscope style that's extraordinarily both heavily artistic and yet at the same time very real.
Yeah.
You've got just heavy chins, overly muscular, but at the same, it's you've got your anatomy follows a standard format. It's not the Sam Keithian elongated man type style that you see a lot, or the over exuberant superhero, overly muscle bound that you exploded in the early 90s.
Yeah, I don't do anything like that because as much as I like, when I was a kid, I was reading Graham Nolan's Batman. Graham's one of my favorite artists. And he's very on model. I mean, he's so on model that, there's no way I felt like I could ever do anything like that. I have too much of a loose style. But, he didn't. Even his Bane is not like, you're right, like this Sam Keith Bane. It's just like he's just a big dude. He's just a big strong guy,
He still follows the rules.
Yeah. And I went to art school, and that's it's like I always felt like, just make him somewhat believable. If they're too out of the ordinary. And because like you look at how Bruce Timm made his monsters, they were just these blocks. And I was like, well, it works in that context, but it's like they can't be much bigger than that because they have tiny little ankles, and they become sort of anthropomorphized after a minute. So I never go that far out because I don't think it looks very realistic. It's hard for me to make that style consistent and look appropriate with smaller characters.
I just a little side note. I'm going to push back a little. I agree with you on your what you say, like by age 14, like as an artist, and stuff, you kind of have gotten your influences embedded in you. But as a musician, I think it goes a little past 14.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. But I get what you're saying. I think it might
that
go
makes
into your
more sense for musician too, actually.
Because when you're younger, you're kind of like I'm into rap and only rap, or I'm into metal, only metal. And then as you get older, you branch out a little bit. And I think that kind of goes into your later teens and early 20s. But I still get what you're saying, because as an artist, I think influence wise, I was about 14, 15, maybe 15 when I stopped really pulling in from other artists as an influence.
Mm-hmm.
But as a musician, I feel like I really started pulling in more influence in my later teens, early 20s, but at that point I stopped. You know what I mean? Like I went from like a metalhead and got all my metal influence young, and then got all my blues and other genre influences at a little bit of a later age. But at a certain point you just stop and you absorb what you absorb, and that's and that's your niche, so.
Well, and if I could carry that a step further, DG, I'm going to push from the writing side and from the reading side, from the literature side. And, as an artist, I think what Camel's getting at, and I think what you just actually hit on indirectly, was you need to have the ground rules established for what's your point of reference, right? And that's done prior to the age of 12. And then you're going to expand, and your views and your experiences are going to expand, but you always go back to that beautiful foundation. So if you, by the age of 12, were a reader, and you want to be a writer, you're going to write based off of what you read. The more you read, the more of a foundation you have. By the age of 12, the more art you were exposed to, the more of a foundation you have. As a musician, the same way, you're going to have more of that foundation. If you don't ever experience, jazz at all, or just a good, strong brass section, you're never going to really understand how that plays into music, and it's more difficult for you to get it later on.
Well, that's what I mean. Like when I hit high school, my teacher was old school jazz guy. Like he played with all the greats. It was a trumpet player, and because of him, I branched out of that. Metallica, only Metallica, Sepultura, only. I broke out of that whole metalhead focal point and was just like, I'm gonna, because I always played saxophone, but I did it because my mother made me at first, and then I fell in love with music. And then I just wanted to play rock, 80s, everybody had a sax player in their band, so I just wanted to play
but you already
rock.
had that foundation with brass. You already had the saxophone background. So then all jazz is showing you is a different way to move the instrument. All it's showing you is a different way to move the pen.
Yep.
It's showing you a different way to phrase the word. And that's what I'm saying is you already had that foundation. And
Yeah.
if you have it, whether it's an exposure to Kirby or Bruce Timm or Ditko or Wally Wood, if you see those, even if you just see them once or twice, those guys, their stuff is so good it resonates. It has to resonate because it's their generational talents.
Absolutely.
And it's the same if you read Hemingway. It's the same if you listen to Thelonious Monk. You might not get it. It might take 10 years, but eventually you're going to get it, and you're going to find yourself on a day in your 30s when you're listening to it, looking at it, or reading it, and going, "Fuck, that was influential on my style." And then it catches, and you realize it.
It can be more subconscious than I think you realize. And the Boots and Heels is what if Batman joined the X-Men during the Age of Apocalypse? That's all it is. Those were the stories I was reading when I was 13, and I was just like engulfed in it. And so, it's hard for me to it's not hard for me. I don't want it not. That's the story I like. That's for me, that's the height of storytelling. That's my War and Peace. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm like, well, let me do my spin on it. Let me make sure that it doesn't feel like a repeat, because I don't want to do that either. Let me sort of play with the rules of there's not a lot of time travel comics. And so I was like, let me see if I can create a space here that's unique to my vision, that doesn't ape too much of what I've seen before, but also plays by the known rules of time travel that people are familiar with. This way, it doesn't seem so outlandish or ridiculous. The Avengers Endgame, I can't stand that movie because they totally they make it a time travel movie, and then they throw everything about time travel right out the window. I'm like, well, what is this? This is an interdimensional movie.
That was fun. Now that we conquered this frontier, now we can move, now we can fight interdimensional beings and all this stuff. Didn't they go to the micro world or whatever too? In Avengers? That's how they traveled, right?
That's what he's saying. Yeah,
so annoying.
Yeah, they just there's literally a piece of dialogue in that where they're like, so Back to the Future was bullshit. It's like that's your lazy writing way out of trying to actually have a cohesive narrative, And it's just like, I remember seeing that and just being like, look, it doesn't need to be Back to the Future, but to say Back to the Future is bullshit, and then there's like this word salad attached to it about like not being able to like go back and change the universe because the universe is a multiverse. I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Then they did it anyway.
They did it.
They did it anyway. Steve Rogers goes back.
I know. Like, that's a true plot hole. Like, if you actually look up the definition for plot hole, it's where a story contradicts itself. It's not where there's missing parts where it doesn't make sense. That's not a plot hole. People think that's what a plot hole. A plot hole is where you say one thing and you do the complete opposite. And that movie has so many plot holes that it's aggravating. And I'm just like, so I definitely didn't want to do that.
Well, the only thing that's more aggravating than that, Camel, is when someone titles a book Plot Holes and then doesn't actually use plot holes anywhere in the book.
Did you read it?
I did.
Oh wait, is that's what's his face, right? Yeah. I was like, why does that? Yeah, it's like, why does that sound familiar? But no, it's funny.
Method. Or the Murphy model. What the fuck was that?
Going back to what you were just saying, like, you don't see too many time travel books. Side note again, it's funny how like in this circle, in this sphere that indie comics that we all like inhabit together. I feel like we all are a bunch of like old school comic nerds, right? Because there is an overlapping, like every like year or two, there's a theme of like the comics that are coming out, right? Like 2 years ago, everybody had a werewolf comic because there weren't any werewolf comics for a while.
Oh, sure. Well, part of that is just it's just zeitgeist of the moment, right? It's
right.
People gravitate to what other people are doing, and I disagree with you completely. By the way, that we're a bunch of old school comic fans. Most people in CG independent comics are not comics fans. They might be like layman comic fans, and I'm not trying to be like an elitist purist here, but a lot of people came into this space for things other than comics. They came in because of culture war. They came in because of Star Wars. They came in because of the Marvel movies, and they appreciated those and they went to shit. But most aren't comic fans. They might have been comic fans at one point, and read comics.
I'm talking about guys like who have been here from like jump from before there was like the culture war and like the ones who were like arguing with Marvel and DC back in 2015, 16, and 17. You know,
okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Right. So like, but what I'm saying is like, it's funny because Camel just said, you know, you don't see a lot of time travel books, and he's got one. And you got Luke Stone and those guys doing one, and I think somebody else is doing a time travel book. I forget who it is. I can't think of who it is off the top of my head. But it's funny. They're all working on it like right now at the same time, and like it's not like one's coming out before the other. It's like they're literally all like kind of coming out at the same time. So these were things that were like they were thinking of prior to, you know what I mean? It's funny though, like you said, like this like zeitgeist, this moment of like people noticing, oh, there's a market for this right now, you know, like, and I kind of find that cool. I think that like that we're all perceptive to that.
Be coincidence. I've been working on this story since 1996, so
no, it's true. It's true. I mean, the book that I've been working on since like since the 90s too, and like it's a supernatural, like, you know, but it's like, you know, I don't want to be that guy that jumps in on a bandwagon, right? So like when I was first working on it way back in the day, you had all like the big, like the Buffy the Vampire Slayers and Angels, and so, you know, so I was like, oh well, then I just look like a bandwagon jumper, and you know, so on and so forth. But eventually it'll come out in a nice little soft cushion spot where it's like there's not too many of those books around, but just, you know, just enough to keep people interested, you know. So
yeah, I think too, you know, like in the attempt with Boots and Heels is 12 issues. And so like the story's done, the arc is there. And there are moments that are set up in issue 1 you don't even know, because it's not going to happen until the 11th and 12th issue. And I think, again, it goes back to like writing a joke. It's just like, if you have the setup, then you can have the payoff. As long as the payoff, in fact, sometimes if you forget that about the setup, the payoff is actually that much more enjoyable and rewarded, because you're like, oh, wow, they set this up, and I totally didn't know where they were going with it. And I remember reading once that the best ending to a movie was the one that you never saw coming, but made no other sense otherwise. And it's like, you know, if you can do that, if you can shift your audience and sort of herd them in that direction, then by the time it happens, then they go away with this, you know, this sense of accomplishment at the end, that they really, you know, connected the dots and were told a story.
So these are floppies? These are 4 floppies that you got going on here on this campaign?
Yeah, they're literally the quality wise though, they're gonna be exactly like the Hail Salad book. So they're hard stock hollow foil. There's gonna be 20 to 28 pages per book. Every issue is its own little story. You know, it's very much like Copper Age stuff. So, you know, if I bought a run of Incredible Hulk, then like, you know, this is Incredible Hulk stripped to another dimension. And then at the end of that issue, you know, like the last page, he's going to see MODOK, right? And then the next issue is him fighting MODOK until the last page where he sees Abomination or whatever. It's the same type of thing. So it's like you're always going to have your own story. There's going to be a slight cliffhanger at the end, and that's what ties everything together so that it tells one complete narrative.
So a question for you is, because I was just having this conversation with someone, like the marketability in the indie space crowdfunding scene of floppies. I mean, obviously you're doing really well with this campaign. So, but, and I'm saying, obviously you think that like there is one, but like, did you think it was taking a chance? Did you think you needed to do a bundle of 4 issues to actually make it work? Or do you think like somebody could do just a one issue, like one floppy, and crowdfund that?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, like what I could have just been like, you're only going to get the trade. I like the idea of individual stories. That's how it was written. It's like, that's how it's meant to be digested. If I put the first 3 issues together and sold that as one issue, it would feel awkward. I mean, you can do it as a trade and say this is a trade, but to only sell it as one issue, you know, when you guys reviewed it, the first thing you would say is this feels like 3 floppies that were put together and just bound in one book, because that's what it would have been.
That's what I mean. Would you think like you would have the same success of just doing one floppy on a campaign, or do you think you need to do a couple?
I guess it remains to be seen. I don't know who hasn't backed the book because there's 4 versus 1. That, you know, that's kind of a metrics someone would need to expose me to, but I don't know if like how accurate that is. It's, you know, this is the method I decided to go. I'm trying to think here. At one point, I had to decide how to break this up because it was 12 issues. I was like, all right, so am I going to do 6 and 6? Am I going to do all 12 at once? And eventually, I landed on 3 and 3, mostly because it was too expensive. Like I wouldn't have made any money if I put 6 and 6 out because of the amount of time. Not time, but the amount it would cost to print a book versus what I could sell it for. So I was like, you know, because like you can get really high up there. Yeah, I could have done a 300-page book, but no one's spending $100 on a trade. So it's, you know, you have to kind of pare it down a little bit.
I wonder if you picked up any backers tonight who might be interested in your floppy format. Oh yeah, you went up by 2. So
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what the like. Let me ask you a question. Would you all right, without having any like numbers there, would you feel that it's a risk doing one floppy on a campaign as compared to doing a bundle like this?
Okay, so that's a better question I can answer. Yeah, I think that's a terrible idea. I think if someone was like, hey, I'm going to do 12 issues. Here's issue 1 at 24 pages. I'd be like, well, that's not going to work. That's it. Because here's the thing. You have to establish the groundwork and trust that the rest of the issues are going to come out. I don't want to sit through 12 campaigns of single issues to get a full story.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I was telling the person. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to bundle it in something that is digestible. Otherwise, it's like, so, you know, I'll have 4 campaigns of 3. I might even add another issue 0 for the next campaign, or half, or whatever I decide to name it. But like for the most part, yeah, like make sure that whoever's buying this is getting their money's worth. But you can't give the farm away either, because if you do that, then it's like you're not making any money. And you know, it's like, this is a business. Marvel isn't putting every movie out in 1 year. They parse it out. It's, you know, 2 movies this year, 2 movies next year. And that's how you sustain yourself.
Mm.
Right. The contrary to that would be like what Professor Murph did, where he sold, I think, 6 issues of floppies at one time, but it's a slow burn release of he sends you the first 3, and then right? It's more of a subscription service, and then as he finishes them, he's going to send them to you. But man, I don't know his financials, but I'm sure he's taking a bath on shipping, because when you're talking about that, you're having to ship, you know, 3 issues right now, and then 3 individual issues as they come out, plus anything else you add to it. He's doing well. God bless him, man. He's almost to 70K, but
he's doing well, but he could very easily not be doing well. And I think it's
right.
There's a greater potential of that being a pitfall than, you know, not.
Right. Now, if you did, if you were serious about it and you had everything done ahead of time and a history of delivering, I think there is a model out there for a 30-day campaign that delivers a floppy that you buy, and it's shipped immediately as soon as the 30 days end, and you get it, and then the next campaign launches immediately. But you would have, I don't know if you'd have to have Jose Garcia-esque speed and a team behind you doing all your pre-press and stuff with each page as it comes in. And the overhead alone on something like that is gonna break the bank on what your profitability margin is.
What was it? There's 2 big companies that did that. There was Marvel and DC, and they would put a book out every month. And we know how that turned out. So I'm not Marvel and or DC, so it ain't happening.
But my other concern with doing something like that is burnout on a particular creator, because we're in a space where we're circling, we're orbiting the same group of people, from different angles, and there's so many different campaigns going. And if you were to come out with a campaign like once, every month or every other month, where people would just be like, I gave this guy enough money, let me go back to this guy over here, and then that third issue might fail. You know what I mean? So,
that's what happens in the mainstream. Is the third to fourth
100%
issue
what happens. Yeah,
and that's why. Because there's too much choice, and too much choice. It's one of those where there's too much choice. How can that be a problem? It's a problem, but it's a problem for the creator. It's not a problem for the consumer, and that's a good problem to have if you're buying comics. You want choice. At the end of the day, it's about delivering quality and delivering consistency. And when you deliver, are you delivering on everything that you promised? And with a book like Hail Salad, CAMEL delivered. On a book like Boots and Heels, it looks like he's going to deliver, and we'll all find out if you backed it. But I think based off his track record on Hail Salad and what he's shown so far, and the consistency of his the fulfillment itself, which, by the way, CAMEL, excellent packaging. CAMEL is the one of two people that delivered a die-cast pin that put it the correct way in the Gemini, so it didn't indent on the book cover.
Yep.
I was like, I don't know how you could not do that. I was like, well, I just have to tape it face down, otherwise it's gonna.
I got that right here. I wonder if it look gay. If I put this on my hat, they're gonna call me gay. They put my pen or the Hail Salad pen on it.
Oh, nice. Don't the studs hurt your head there?
So the takeaway is,
well, you could put it. I mean, I don't wear my hat all the way down.
CAMEL is
cold out or raining.
CAMEL is king of the package. So that's what we've come up.
Master packager.
He's got a beautiful package.
Yeah.
That's
I have a hollow
takeaway of the show.
CAMEL's package.
Yeah.
CAMEL hates us clearly, but
yeah, it's and I think you guys, you talk about burnout. That's why I'll be rotating this campaign. So after this, I'll be doing a Hail Salad, and then I'll go back to Boots and Heels, and so on and so forth. So, I've created enough of what I think is a consistent schedule with my workflow and how fast I work that things will be happening much faster than the initial Hail Salad. The initial Hail Salad was kind of a slog because for a lot of things outside of my control, me and my wife moved from Texas to Florida. That was a huge move. I was also putting out consistent Hail Salad episodes. And so that was almost 6 months of me just working on that. And then we started CAMEL Nights and the game show. So it was a lot of big steps and kind of setting up Camel Moon as a entity. But now that all of that stuff is up and running, I think that we're going to be able to move a lot faster. And it helps that, again, the majority of the books with Boots and Heels are done. They really just need to be colored.
Nice.
Was it your ambition to do comics all the way from art school, or is that something you transitioned into after working in other media formats of media?
Well, initially, so I went to art school. Klaus Janson was my teacher, actually. And so initially I did want to do comics. Then in the early 2000s, the digital revolution started, and you could buy a computer and you could buy a camera and you could just make a movie, which was...
I have to ask, did Klaus Janson hit on you?
No, at least I don't think so.
Okay, good. Wanted to know the student professor relationship.
I hope not. I was so aloof, so I started getting into filmmaking, and I was really interested in that. And then I ended up getting a job at A&E, and then I worked for a documentary company, and we did a lot of art movies, and and then I started making my own movies. And then I started to realize that the glass ceiling to get into Hollywood was about a mile thick. It was almost impossible. I literally could have trained to be an astronaut and had just as good a chance.
That's why the porn industry is thriving out there.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, because I just was like, this is insane. And I started to notice this trend of you'd go to a film festival and you were literally being gatekept by 19-year-old tools,
right?
Because they would have like a list of like criteria for you to have to match on your movie. They weren't watching, they didn't understand enough about film or whatever it was. And so you would just be like, thrown off the list, even if, and because there were plenty of movies that I had seen that didn't get into festivals. I was like, this is great. And then you go to the festivals and you're like, oh, well, you're this guy's friend, or you're some like local celebrity in this little town. And so, they want to get you here. And so even, the film festival route was not happening, especially in the early 2000s, because that was very shortly after Clerks did well. And so everyone saw that as their method to get into the industry. People were, taking out $40,000 on credit cards and putting it into these stupid little bedroom dramas. And it was kind of trash.
The Sundance boom.
Yep.
Yeah.
No,
It was a
I was
Sundance
right. I
boom.
was right there for that, man. I got accepted to a rather prestigious film school. I was this close, man, to going, and it was Clerks that told me not to, because of the success that that had. It was okay. Nope. It's all everything's changing, and I'm not fit
for the better.
that. I'm not fit for that market, and I'm not going to do well. So I changed career paths after 4 years of thinking all through high school, this is what I'm doing.
I know. I know a lot of people.
It was for the better in the long run.
I feel like, I mean, whether you like the movie or not, I feel like Clerks was probably the last legit movie to make it through a festival.
No, there's new ones come all the time. Blair Witch came through festivals.
Yeah, but that was at the same time.
I was after. That was
it was like right after. Clerks was 94. Blair Witch was what, 98?
What ended up happening was later on. In order to get into a festival, you needed a big name and you needed a minimum $500,000 budget, if not $1 million. Yep. And so, like, there's a movie. It's really good called I think it's called Cop Car with Kevin Bacon, and it's about these two kids who steal a cop car. Now, these directors went off to direct some of the Spider-Man movies. And it's like, okay, so, but you were able to get Kevin Bacon in an indie flick. And so like that became the new norm for creating indie movies. And it was like, well, this is not obtainable. Like I don't fucking know Kevin Bacon. And so a lot of it was like, people phoning in favors, and it essentially became an industry of people who were already successful in life, who already had connections through UCLA or wherever.
No,
let me rephrase what I said before. So that era, that late 90s era, any of those movies was probably like the last legitimate, because Clerks didn't have anybody big. Blair Witch Project didn't have anybody big in it. That like late 90s era was probably the last true indie festival. Like, cause I remember I lived 3.5 minutes from the store that Clerks was filmed at. Like, I remember when like Kevin Smith like made it. Like, everybody in this area was just like, yeah, oh wow. Like we knew who that guy was. Just he was like some schmo down the street who had a camera in his hand. You know what I mean? Like, so and like CAMEL was saying, like the fast forward 10, 12 years later, and like you got Kevin Bacon, you got the dude who played, what the hell's his name? William Dafoe was in an independent movie. You know what I mean? At a festival.
You're talking about Boondock Saints was in technically. It was, well, I don't know if that was a.
That really wasn't an indie.
Yeah, it was just like a low budget.
No, the movie where he like basically, oh man, he's like a fucked up dude. He like, it's him and some chick in like a cabin somewhere. He like basically assaults her like over and over again, and then she has to escape.
I think what Dark Gift is saying is that he was the original Jason Mewes, and then Kevin Smith kicked him to the curb.
I probably could have been
I think
that
that's
time.
The moral of the story. Blade Runner wants to know, CAMEL, please address the issue with Malin. He is number 2 in CG. The militia would like to support you both. Controversy.
And I'm sorry, I cut Aldous off.
Do you know what this in reference to? People would like to support both you and Malin. They want to know why you hating CAMEL? Why you be hating?
God, there's always.
Is it because you haven't gotten
trolls?
You haven't gotten your 10K golf cart? Is that the reason?
There's always people who want drama. Like I don't. I'm
The
not
drama
here for drama,
famas.
guys. You know, you can
What'd you
support
say?
both of us
No,
by supporting both of us. You know,
Yeah, you got enough money. Just buy everything. All this. Sorry, you were
you
cut
don't
off.
got a golf cart.
Yeah, I cut Aldous off. I apologize, man.
Oh no, you're fine, man. It was just going to diverge further off into the film thing, and I think we need to loop back and go back into comics and boots and heels here.
Yeah. Well, so it sounds like you eventually found comic books after hitting a 12-inch glass ceiling in the indie scene in Hollywood, basically.
yeah, yeah, and so I was like, all right, well, that's enough of that. And I kind of got back into comics because I was like, they started to get to a point where like you were I'm trying to phrase this right. I was too reliant on other people to make stuff. And I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to do comics anyway. That's what I was trained in. I found that I was like drawing more often. So I was like, I can just tell the story I want to tell. Because I always wanted to make the Claude Agent Boots and Heels movie. And I was like, well, I should really make it a comic first anyway. So I was like, let me just kind of do that. I also thought it'd be an easier way to get into the industry because I was like, well, you need a skill set. And then after about a couple of years, you know, we started to see the wind change in the comic industry, and the skill set didn't matter anymore. So that was one of the reasons I ended up actually becoming CG, because I was like, oh, okay, this is not a meritocracy like I thought it was. So that was kind of aggravating.
Yeah, good. That's a good thing because I wouldn't be here if that were the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's what actually contributed to the degradation of the quality of films that come out of Hollywood, is the erosion of the meritocracy and the insider aspect.
Okay, well, now you brought it back to the point I was going to make. So when a guy like Phil Tippett, who is a goddamn legend, has to go to a subscription service like Shudder with Mad God, which is a stop motion film that he'd been working on for 20 plus years, there's a problem. Like there should just be a market for that film, but there's not. And my God, that's an issue. I mean, that's an entirely separate issue, but it does coalesce over into comics to a degree. When you've got people that are really truly amazing artists, like Liam Sharp recently went on a little Twitter tirade on why he released Starhenge via Image instead of doing it on a crowdfund campaign, because he quote unquote, it's just too much work. He doesn't understand how much there is to do in it, nor does he understand every aspect of it. It's funny in one way, and it's sad in another, that we've got multiple creators that, and no offense to them, are not nearly as talented as Liam Sharp, that have put out multiple books that are fantastic, but he can't figure it out. These guys are working out of their homes, shipping, 10 to 20 books a day, and
without
Liam's
the
going,
connection.
I can't figure it out. No, man, do it. You made $100K on your art book, but you're going to run to Image, and there's this huge scared aspect of it, and it's a detriment to indie comics, because you've got that. In film, you've got the opposite. You've got there's no byline, there's no methodology for these great artists like Phil Tippett to get their work into a theater where people could actually see it, because if it doesn't take right off in the first 48 hours, then it's considered a failure and it moves on. Well, it took Jaws a long time to make what it made. It took Star Wars a little bit of time to make what it made. You got to let things sit for a little while and stew sometimes. And in the current climate that we've got, it's instantaneous gratification. It's instantaneous success. And it's a shame, because it's also, it has bled over into, by the very nature of crowdfunding, right? It has, because you've only got 60 days really to get in on something before it funds. So you don't get that chance to get it out there and get it to, percolate, so to speak. That being said, it all falls back more on the artist, more so than ever, to sell your own product. So I don't know. Maybe my loose series of thoughts there didn't connect, or maybe they coalesced for everybody. Either way.
I think KSSS sums it up nicely. He says he thought about making movies, but he just didn't want to sleep with Harvey Weinstein.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go.
I'm wondering.
Yeah,
That'll happen.
I think too that there's a lot of, especially in the 2000s, it was, you know, a lot of these liberal arts colleges had no problem selling you the dream of like, yeah, you can do, you know, I remember my first day, I went to SVA, School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. There was a big display for Bryan Singer, because Bryan Singer went to SVA, and it was for X-Men came out that year. And, you know, it was like, look, all those fucking X-Men posters and pictures of Bryan Singer. Well, come to find out, Bryan Singer left after like his first year of college. Like he bounced. He was like, so it's like, you know, they're claiming him as their own, as like some alumni. It's like, but the freaking guy left.
He didn't even graduate.
He didn't even graduate. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, this is such a bunch of bullshit. But if you go in there, you know, wide-eyed, and you're just like, wow, yeah, I could have be like fucking Bryan Singer. I'm going to go to School of Visual Arts, and I'm going to make X-Men 9.
And I'm going to touch boys.
Yeah, no, it's not happening.
I'm joking.
Yeah, and I knew guys
Allegedly.
at the time who were going to NYU, and you know, some of them graduated, and I'd hit him up a couple years later. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm getting coffee. You know, I'm running tape," and you know, it's just like you spent $150,000 on an NYU degree in film to be a key grip. You know, and it's just like, yeah, this is. It started to look more and more like a hustle, and I was like, you know what, I don't need to be a part of that.
You could be hustling over here, putting in your work for your own.
Well, at least I own it, right?
Yeah,
At
right.
least, you know.
Yeah.
So.
If only you let Harvey Weinstein teabag you, then Hail Salad would be playing in theaters everywhere.
What a great life that would have been.
If only you attended those classes in art school.
Hey, look at Jennifer Lawrence. It worked out for her.
I just was thinking about her. I was like, yeah, you know.
Oh,
I didn't want to get into that, but let's keep my mouth shut.
that was the path to success. Yeah, we had actually some of your older work here. I don't know if you feel like taking a trip down memory lane with us, but we have the old Hail Salads when you were still using the Space Ghost Coast to Coast footage to make them.
Oh yeah.
That was a cease and desist, right? Or did you get a claim? What was it? I can't remember.
What happened was I made the
DVDs, wasn't it?
I was doing well, right? So we had 3 episodes done, and it was taken off. And I was like, I actually talked about this in the Rocket interview, but it was like I knew that eventually I wanted to crowdfund at CG with Boots and Heels. So I was like, well, maybe let me test the space out, see what the fans are like here, and et cetera, et cetera. And also, I'd never done an Indiegogo campaign. So I was like, all of the shit that I don't know, I'm going to learn here. And it was a valuable experience because I didn't have a launch. No one knew who I was. I just posted it in the middle of the night and then put a tweet out that I made it. And somehow we made $3,000 in a week. And
Nice.
I was like, you know, I'm thinking, okay, great. This is this normal? I have no idea. And EVS was even like, you know, they even promoted it, which was funny right up until, I got a C&D from Warner Brothers. And they were like, this is too close to our property. I had a lawyer friend who I was showing it to. And he was like, you can die on this hill if you really want to, like, I don't know how much money you're going to spend going to Burbank, California to defend this thing, but like, it's not worth it. He's like, just fucking make your own thing. And
Go toe to toe with Warner Brothers.
Yeah. And so I was just like, okay, that's fine. You know, I'm not married to Space Ghost. Also, I didn't really want, I think every creator always has in the back of his head, like, this might, if I die tomorrow, what am I going to be remembered for? I did not want to be remembered as the guy who made a Space Ghost parody. That's like, it's, you know, it's like, because it's already a parody of itself. Yeah. It's like twice removed parody. And I was like, yeah, let me get the fuck.
Or the guy who made the Oxmoth song.
Well, everyone likes that at least, but.
Actually, three times removed, right? Because isn't the original Space Ghost just a rip-off of Batman? Like...
Yeah. So I was like, I can easily just like give this up. Well, the hardest thing though was again, I had no idea about anything in CG, and the amount of trolls that were here, they're not here like they used to be, but there were a lot of trolls who were like texting me daily, I want my money back. And I'm like, look, it's at Indiegogo. The campaign's over. You know, it takes 30 days for all returns to happen. They were doxing my texts. They were posting like, this is what this guy Camel Moon said to me, just like long conversations where I'm literally copying and pasting what Indiegogo sent me to say, you know, and that got kind of worrisome because I was like, God, I hope everyone's not like this here. And after some of the divisions that happened in CG about a year later, that I realized who those people were, and they're no longer here, and it worked out for the best.
Oh wait, so you ran afoul of they who shall not be named early on?
I what?
You ran afoul of they who shall not be named?
Oh yeah, and also I was totally like tried to get canceled by Renfamous. She came after me hard, and she reposted everything that I had about how the campaign got taken down. She framed it as some massive failure and how like lawyers came to my house. I mean, the whole thing was ridiculous. But she had, I don't know, 3,000-4,000 people who were attacking me. You know, no one talks about the time CAMEL got canceled. They talk about when other people get canceled. But I was so new here that people didn't know who I was. So I was just like, well, whatever. I'll take it on the chin. But, knock on wood, no one's come for me since. But I've also kept my beak out of other people's business. And I don't want to get in beefs with people. I don't want to have any drama. You know, if people have problems with me, they're allowed to have problems with me. But you come at me, I'm a stone wall. I'm just like, I don't care. So,
well, celebrity boxing matches are the way.
What's that?
Oh, the celebrity boxing matches, you know, you got to get it to the YouTube.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing. This is a business, and you got to treat it like a business. I'm not interested in beefs with people for drama's sake to get book sales. I think that's a really, you know, and so because the thing is like, yeah, it might work, but it only works for a little while, you know, and we saw what happened with certain people in the space who did that, and then it was like eventually they just they're like they're Batman. They just go into the night looking for any face to fight. You know, like I'm not engaging in that. You know, I also think that my art style, my storytelling, even my own personal, personality should be enough to fall on or fall back on as far as selling product. But if it ever gets to the point where I feel like I have to engage in drama streams, then I'll just leave because it's not worth it for me.
Yeah, I feel like early in those days, everybody was getting canceled from within and without. And maybe that's why your cancellation fell under the radar, because it was just a flurry. I think everybody was in a hurricane.
Yeah, 2019, my old account, I mean, I too had my Renfamous encounter, and they got my first Twitter account. Well, technically my second. I'm on my first now. I just rebranded it. But yeah, they got that account totally. Like you said, like 1,000 to 2,000 people a day, just like flooding your Twitter feed, and then reporting you for every little tweet you make.
Yeah.
To the point, and with me, it finally got to the point where Twitter was just like, okay, we just got to get rid of this guy, even if he didn't do anything wrong. Because I kept getting email after email. You know, you got reported for this, but nothing was wrong. You got reported for this, but nothing was wrong. You got reported for this within like a matter of days.
Yeah, why don't you go check them? Who's the real problem? You hear them.
Yeah. Well, it's just, it's the same thing. Like, nowadays you see these things where like an angry mob is protesting and go on some guy's property, and he pulls out a shotgun to protect himself, and the cops come and arrest him because it's easier to arrest the one guy than it is to arrest 50. So.
Yeah, bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I do remember that early campaign. Were you? I mean, maybe I'm misremembering this. Were you offering the shows on VHS? Was that a thing?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
DVD. They were on DVD. You get all.
I was going to offer them on DVD or a Blu-ray, and I'll still probably do that for Hail Salad. I think maybe next year, maybe next March or April. Once all 10 episodes are done, I have one more episode that I'm working on. and then I'll put it out there, and and it won't come with issue 2 because I still have to draw. It's gonna take a minute, but it'll come with. I have different stuff planned, so it'll probably be another like a reprint of issue 1, and I have a couple of other pieces of merch that I think people are gonna like. It'll be a relatively small campaign though. I don't want it's not gonna be some big boots and heels, 20K yada yada. At least I don't think so.
Should have a Betamax tier for the.
You know how hard it would be. You'd have to
Laserdisc,
go.
man.
Yeah, you'd have to go to like one of these
High-def
production
DVDs.
houses. Yeah, you'd have to like go to like one of these effects houses and have them do it. Like I don't even know where you'd go anymore because it's such old tech.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
some people got to still own them, I guess. So, would you get struck for playing this, or was it just because you were crowdfunding it that you had the cease and desist? Like, if we play this right now, is it an issue?
No, I mean, there's no striking. I don't see how because like I redid all the assets, so nothing in there was pulled from the original show. I even remade that intro. I just made that. And so the only thing that I pulled was the music. You can play music on YouTube. I mean, you get like a copyright. I don't know if it's a strike or whatever, but
It's a
it doesn't
claim.
it doesn't
It's a
hurt the
claim.
channel. It's just
Yeah.
like they just say you can't make money off this, can't be monetized. So
But as long as
I
you're
don't-
not playing music videos, like recent ones, especially, you can play like songs though, and you just get claimed. That's
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't make any money on anything on YouTube or in real life anyway, so I'm good.
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's Comic Artist Pro Secrets. I'm Ethan Van Sciver. I missed you guys yesterday.
I've been drinking since 10 o'clock last night, pretty heavily.
Yesterday was interesting. I was supposed to get a haircut, and I look forward to that. I didn't shave or anything. My haircut time is my time. It's my time on the barber chair.
What I noticed is that the majority of people are happy when I am drunk.
It's great. It's just like an old West kind of barber shop.
They didn't have Wu-Tang back then.
And I usually fall asleep in the chair, It's just fantastic.
You got to get your act together, pal.
I want to apologize to everyone for sharing this story. Hey, Anna, how are you?
Good.
I am sick of this shit.
By the way, Cecil, have you been drinking?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk about this, Cecil, because you're fucking it up. Yeah, Cecil's sobriety was kind of tough, but now I miss it.
Your liver is the only organ that will grow back.
I don't think your liver grows back.
It does.
I think Anna's kind of a scientist, so maybe you should be quiet.
Well, I mean, I will. Okay. Cecil, where are you?
It's probably getting ice.
Why is Cecil always interrupting my show with his
I was
bullshit?
getting ice.
That's how well I knew Cecil. I knew exactly what he was doing.
How do you feel about that, Cecil? That's what it means.
It means you're fired, motherfucker.
Okay, we're going to push forward through gritted teeth. What do you think about that, John Mallon?
Sorry, I'd be on camera, so my cat is mooning everybody.
Jeez, man.
He's gonna be opening for Lizzo next month, by the way.
I mean, I don't understand why there's so much infighting. Am I the only one who gets along with everybody?
Am I the only one who's like, every time we're not talking about cash grab, that I'm thinking, why aren't we talking about cash grab?
I would love to see
Yeah,
a calendar like this about you.
You know, I'm not gonna brag, but me in that outfit would look much bigger. One, my tits are bigger. Are there hidden penises in my chest hair? I don't know. Are there?
Maybe.
What I'm saying is, there's no short shrift on nipple hair, which you'll find with a lot of inferior product today.
Cecil, I got to tell you something. I'm so happy with the amount of detail that you pour into your work.
To the people who say no penis is in the chest hair, I say, I will fucking choke you out straight up. And if you die, so be it.
All right, there you go.
yeah. That wasn't all one conversation, was it? Like you had to splice different conversations to make that?
So I think the first episode was taken from only that stream, and I just kind of mixed and matched things that I thought were funny at different moments. When I got to the second, third episode, I started pulling from different streams. And by the time I did Hail Salad, man, I think the last episode, I think I pulled from about 14 streams.
Woof.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Yeah.
hard to find like clippable moments?
Is
diamond
it
in the
hard to
rough
find
thing?
clippable moments? Sometimes. I mean, not really. It's time consuming. It's a lot of like, I watch things in 2 times speed, and if I hear something that I think is funny, I usually just keep it on in the background, and I'll take a video or an episode, I'll put it where will I put it? I'll put it on my timeline in Final Cut. I'll play it, and then I'll just start drawing. And then when I start hearing funny stuff, I'll hit pause, cut out the snippets, and then I put it in I have another bin where I keep sound bites, and then I delete the chaff there, and then I eventually go back and sort of create a puzzle of a sort of a narrative with all these extra sound bites and see if I can't create a story out of it.
I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Who's your favorite to clip?
Oh, that's interesting. Probably Cecil. Cecil
That's an
has
easy
good
one.
stuff. Yeah. Cecil's funny. I'm excited when I get clips from people who are not Cecil or Ethan, though, because it's good to have extra people in there. Like people really like the episode with Wanger, and that was good to have an extra character. Like he added an extra element that wasn't there initially, so it was helpful. For variety's sake, to kind of clip from other streams and other characters.
The piano on the back and then doing the musical set was freaking genius.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that was great.
Yeah, it became a lot more work, I think, after you had to move away from the Hail Salad, because you had to animate all of those, or not the Hail Salad, the Space Ghost, because you had to animate then all the episodes of Hail Salad from scratch, essentially, right?
Oh yeah, everything was done from scratch. I mean, you create a template, so it's like I'm not redrawing the background or anything, but every time there was a new character, I had to build a whole, character set for them, moving arms, moving legs, etc. The hardest episode to date to do was the strip club episode, because that was it required 4 new backdrops. I think there's choke outs in there, Witten is in there. There's some more strippers in the background. There's a lot of stuff. Yeah,
Bancroft, I think.
Bancroft wasn't until I think the episode after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember you had that skit with him and being an Uber driver or the taxi.
Yeah.
Sketch therapy. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was after that. That was like the Liam episode too, where he was yelling at everybody or conquering the world.
But humble beginnings, and everything started here. So let's finish watching this just for old time's sake. There's only a couple minutes left.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Fuck you.
Okay. And so what I'm trying to say is if Cecil's behavior is outrageous right now.
In what way am I outrageous? For what? For recognizing my own genius?
Okay, sorry, Anna. I'm sorry for this.
I'm going to ask you to try to relate to me for one moment. I've spent my life as an unrecognized genius, and to be all I've ever wanted to be is a recognized idiot.
I didn't know about it. Nobody told me about that.
It's like he's talking about
Yeah,
you, Cam.
including you, Cecil. You didn't tell anybody.
How uncalled for. Feels like the fucking Holocaust.
What? Did you just say it feels like the Holocaust?
No.
The Holocaust, Cecil, you don't want to compare Cecil. You don't want to compare the death of millions of people to you getting $71,000.
I don't.
I'm not trying to mansplain. I'm just saying that one was a tragedy that will be remembered and mourned over for 1,000 years, and you made $71,000 on a comic book.
You ever shut up? It makes me want to fucking puke.
I don't even know what I was trying to say.
Surprise, surprise. Everyone's against me.
John, what did you think of that beautiful artwork?
Anna, with all due respect, shut up.
Yeah, defensive over there.
Still holds up, it's still pretty funny.
It's a thing of beauty.
I think the
I
one
love
thing that
those,
I
man.
really like about the Space Ghost episodes that isn't too apparent, not apparent, but like it's not part of the style of the Hail Salads is you really get that like that space, like that in between conversations, that dead air that you would get on a Space Ghost episode where they're just looking at each other.
Yep.
I thought that kind of came out great.
Yeah. No, those are timeless, definitely.
The pregnant pauses as they were.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the term I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go down
Yeah,
in
and
history.
In Hail
Sorry.
Salad, it's much more compressed. I think every so often I have a pregnant pause, but like the ones in the Space Ghost were much more pleasant or present.
Mm-hmm. Are you wrapping up Hail Salad fairly soon? The series, not the comic.
Yeah, well, I'm working on the 10th episode. I don't know if it'll come up before Christmas. I'll definitely, once I'm done with the campaign, I'll probably get into it. Oh, okay. So then it might come out. Maybe I'll get it out for Christmas. Maybe I'll get it out for New Year's. But it'll probably be on the next couple of months. I have all the dialogue, mostly like 75% of the dialogue together, and I just have to make sure I can find the narrative that I want, and then I start drawing the new assets for it.
And what about upcoming future things? So, what are the chances we could see something animated for Boots and Heels? Have you ever considered that?
I have. I am. Mum's the word. I'm not.
Yeah, just between us gals.
Between
Don't
us
worry.
and 7 people watching.
Yeah.
I'm working on certain things. I'm not willing to say just what they are just yet. But when I reveal them, everyone will know, and it'll be amazing. That's all I can say.
Nuclear secrets close to the chest.
Yeah, DEFCON 5 secrets.
Exactly. So you can trust the nuclear codes to Camel. Clearly, he won't reveal them. And go out and back Boots and Heels to find out what happens and what's in store for the future. So, Camel,
yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It was great. It was really fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do here. So we're pleased to have you, and it was fascinating talking to you, getting to know more of your background and your work and upcoming projects. So thank you. It's great.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, nice meeting you, brother.
Keep up the good work.
All this Finatra Dark Gift, as always. Thank you very much for your opinions and perspectives on everything. Your contributions to the stream.
I appreciate having me on. Well read. If I may, briefly, ever so briefly, if you enjoyed anything that Camel had to say and you'd like to see more, in Rocket Mission 2, there is a number of pages dedicated to Camel. So you're more than welcome to go check that out. Rocket Magazine, the best indie comics magazine available, just launched on Saturday, and we're always looking for more customers.
Yeah, Steve Dye, he's an awesome guy. Got drinks with him. Great to hang out with. He's been on the show a couple of times. So let me just quickly bring up his campaign. Give it the love and attention that it deserves. So the first Rocket did fulfill. So you can expect him to be on-time professional and deliver high quality. Steve has a background in magazine editing. And he's applied that skill and talent into the CG arena with interviews of creators, previews of upcoming projects, original art that you won't see anywhere else. You can only get it when you back Rocket. So definitely check out Steve Dye's Indiegogo. Available now. 62 backers already, 3K raised. He's really close to his funding goal. So let's push him over the edge, guys. He could definitely use it.
I think he'll definitely make it for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
It's a Killer Boss cover. He's got She. He's got the
EJ
black
Moore
flag.
just absolutely killed it on this cover. This is fantastic.
Dope.
Yeah.
Did you color it as well?
No, Carlos Moreno colored it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, everything looks tight.
You can get the full load, the full payload. I mean, if you want a lot of T-shirts, tchotchkes, the original book, and the new rocket, there's a $115 tier, or just the book itself, $25. So go out and get it now. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Mods, please do your thing. Chill. And yeah, everybody.
Get to work.
Appreciate the shout out for the book, man.
Yeah, I like Steve a lot. You know, I was really friendly with him. Consider him a friend. Like
I'll share it out as well.
I had a great time.
Chance. In fact, next my stream.
I don't know if he cares.
It,
I don't know if he cares, but like me, him, and Cecil, we stayed up until like 2 or 3 in the morning, getting really wasted on the rooftop of a Florida bar, looking at the ocean and fireworks, and then walked over to his truck for a nightcap of beers that he still had. So like, yeah, the drinking and the laughing, you know, just wouldn't end. It was a great time. So
yeah,
Steve's a
I've
great
heard
guy.
the story a number of times, so it's
Oh, you have.
it
Oh.
resonates well. So
Okay, well, cool. Yeah, hopefully it's not broken telephone and things didn't get lost in translation. But I had a great time. Steve was an awesome
no,
guy.
it sounds like it, man. I still don't understand how your pants got at the top of the pole, but you know.
Oh, well, you know, that's a story for another stream, I think.
There you go.
Kind of like Camel's writing approach. You have to leave some things to mystery. You know, you don't want to give away too much. So, yeah, everybody, thank you again. And go out and back Boots and Heels, support Camel Moon. Check out his show, Camel Nights, the game show. And we'll see all of you really soon. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, chat.
Later.
Later.